Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 40th episode of the story, where Naruto is raised by Jiraiya and Tsunade. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. Is that really Madara Uchiha? He doesn't look like a reanimation, it can't be the real Madara Uchiha. He died long time ago. Up on the hill, Madara smirked, amused by the effect he was having on the allied ninjas. Even if they weren't convinced of the authenticity of his identity, the censors had to be noticing the immense power of his chakra. I see some people have doubts about my identity. Reasonable, I suppose. But let me assure you that yes, I am indeed Madara Uchiha in the flesh. You may have heard that I died in the battle against Hashirama Senju, way back during the First Ninja War. News of my death were grossly exaggerated. Of course, Madara wasn't going to reveal that he did die against Hashirama, and it was thanks to the forbidden jutsu Izanagi that he managed to cheat death. From what I've been told, it seems that you already met my main associate, Obito Uchiha, Madara revealed, prompting the murmurs to grow even louder. Yes, while I'm not a founding member, you could say that I'm affiliated with the organization known as Akatsuki. Figured I'd make clear for what side I'm fighting for. Now, I can hear that many of you are still having doubts about the validity of those claims, especially my identity, Madara said, as he took a step forward. Allow me then, to dispel those doubts with something only the real Madara Uchiha could provide. Madara then jumped from the hill, landing with a loud thud, and raising a small cloud of dust. He looked at the crowd of ninjas gathered in front of him, his naturally black eyes turning red as they shifted into the Sharingan, as he flared his chakra a little so non-censors could feel its sheer, raw power. The effect was immediate, as a wave of panic washed over the ninjas of the second division, making them tremble and hesitate. Madara smirked, and took a step forward, flaring his chakra again, causing most of the ninjas on the first lines of the front to take a step back in fear. Another step, and the fear grew more. Another step, stand firm. Kuratsuchi yelled, as she hovered above her troops. Madara or not, powerful or not, he's just one man. He can't hope to take on all of us. So I don't want to see any of you hesitate, you hear me? We fought enemies far more fearsome than this guy. Yes, Sachikage-sama. As you order, Commander. Yes, Commander. We won't let you down. Soon, a chorus of cheers and affirmative answers filled the air, as the fear was lifted, replaced by a wave of battle euphoria. A girl that flies. That must be the granddaughter of Inoki Zetsu told me about. She has more spunk than the big-nosed brat, but she's just as big-mouthed, Madara thought, unable to repress a smirk. Nice job cheering up your troops, girl. But soon, you're going to see that your earlier fear was more than justified. Time to dance. And with that, Madara decided to stop playing intimidation games, and charged towards the second division. Everybody, charge. Crush that guy. Kuratsuchi ordered. Kuratsuchi's order was replied by a roar of affirmations, followed by many battle cries, and every ninja of the second division charged forward, ready to put down this man who claimed to be Madara. The two forces finally clashed, and the initial result were dozens of allied ninjas being sent flying by the sheer force behind Madara's charge. As the former Uchiha clan had forced his way into the middle of the bulk of the second division, allied ninjas swarmed him from every direction. Unfortunately for the latter, trying to overwhelm Madara with sheer numbers was proving to be useless. The rogue Uchiha moved fast, had excellent footwork, perfect awareness of his surroundings, and his strikes were fast and deadly. He would parry or deflect every strike aimed at him with sheer speed and precision, and counter with a single lethal blow. Whenever somebody attacked him from the flanks, he sidestepped and used the attacker's momentum against them, making them to hit an ally ninja instead. And Madara never stayed in the same position for more than 2 seconds, making attacking him from behind impossible. His Sharingan gave him an accurate prediction of what his enemies would do, to the point that from his point of view, it almost felt like fighting opponents in slow motion. He even used the enemy's numerical superiority against them. Sometimes, rather than incapacitate or kill an enemy ninja, he would grab them and use their body as a living shield, making the other allied ninjas to stop, and Madara would capitalize on said hesitation by beating them with the body of the ninja he was holding hostage. When kunai or shuriken were thrown at him, he would expertly catch them and toss them towards other allied ninjas. Someone even had the bright idea of tossing several kunai with explosive notes attached to them. He tossed one back at the IWA ninja who tossed it first, and tossed the others in different directions. The action was followed by several explosions and screams of pain. Soon Madara grew bored of fighting barehanded, and stole a katana from a Kumo ninja and grabbed a kunai a Suna ninja sent his way. Now that he was armed, he only needed one precise swing to a vital spot in order to end the life of his opponents, swings his enemies didn't even have time to block or dodge. Pools of blood starting to form across the green grass as Madara killed an allied ninja with each passing second. Kuratsuchi was flying above the battle, a cube of light ready to fire already in her hands. Come on, I only need one clear shot to end this asshole, but I can't fire without hitting my men right now. Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth as she watched Madara slaughter her troops. She always loved the sheer destructive power of the dust release, but now she was realizing of a really big downside. This is getting boring. Is there anybody among these rabble that can provide for a challenge? Madara asked. Konoha Whirlwind. Suddenly, Madara saw a young man surrounded by a green glowing aura, dressed in a green jumpsuit, sporting a ridiculous bowl haircut that reminded him of Hashirama in his youth, and equally ridiculous thick eyebrows, ready to deliver a roundhouse kick. Madara smirked, took a step back to dodge the kick, and lunged forward to sink his kunai into the poor sod's neck. However, much to his surprise, the team continued to spin, and using his building momentum, delivered a kick with his other foot, swatting the kunai out of Madara's hand. Then, after completing a 360 degrees turn, he launched himself towards the Uchiha, and assaulted him with a barrage of punches and kicks. Even with the Sharingan, Madara was having trouble following and predicting the young man's moves, as his speed and strength was way superior to that of the enemies he had been fighting. He's even averting my gaze, almost as if he had been trained to fight against somebody with a Sharingan, Madara noticed. He then saw that his green-clad opponent pulled something out of his ninja tool pouch, very quick, and in a way that Madara didn't see what it was. Huh. His young opponent tossed the object to the ground, raising a cloud of black smoke, which he used as a cover. A smoke bomb. Not bad, but Madara was interrupted when he saw the cloud of smoke shifting slightly. He leaped back just in time as a barrage of shuriken and kunai emerged from within the cloud, as he swung his katana in order to parry the weapons that would hit him. His Sharingan warned him that some of the kunai and shuriken were imbued with lightning chakra, and thus he avoided those instead. While he was busy deflecting the rain of steel, and now that the cloud was beginning to dispel, Madara could see they were being fired from a ceiling scroll by a girl with brown hair styled in twin buns. The same green-clad kid from before was charging at him, together with a man who was dressed in the same green jumpsuit and had the same ridiculous hairstyle. Still, that didn't change the fact that they were moving at such insanely high speed that his Sharingan was having trouble following them. Come on, Lee. The two of us at once, the green-clad man said. I'm behind you, Guy-sensei. Double morning peacock. Guy and Lee launched a barrage of fast and powerful punches at Madara, their fists moving so fast, they produced fireballs of the resulting air friction. Madara wasn't even able to counterattack, just block and dodge the lethal punches at best as he could. Still, he wasn't worried or nervous in the slightest, far from it. He was smiling, satisfied by the challenge provided by his green-clad opponents. Yes. This is more like it, Madara said, almost laughing. Guy and Lee finished their combo by launching a fiery punch each towards Madara, which he shielded from by crossing his arms in front of him, the resulting fiery explosion sending the Uchiha skidding backwards. Not bad, but you dash. Madara was interrupted when a new opponent, and Hyuga by both his looks and his activated Byakugan, rushed towards him. Like Guy and Lee, he was also surrounded by a green glowing aura. 8 trigrams, double exploding palms. The Hyuga slammed both his glowing palms into Madara, resulting yet again in another explosion, sending the revived Uchiha even further away from the bulk of the army, this time bouncing on his back rather than skidding. Still, he was able to regain balance and land on his feet again. Yes. Now that he's far away from my troops, there's no risk of accidentally killing them. Kuratsuchi cheered, as she readied her deadly attack. Dust release, atomic dismantling jutsu. Madara was encased by a cube of white light, which started to glow brighter, before flashing briefly, the cube and everything inside it disappearing, Madara included, if he wasn't fast enough to dodge it before he could be vaporized. Shit! Kuratsuchi cursed, as she began throwing more cubes of light at Madara, the Uchiha dodging all of them. Unfortunately, she had to stop herself from spamming the attack, or else her chakra reserves would be empty in seconds. Upon seeing that he was relatively safe, Madara took a second to gather a little of his breath. It seems there are indeed some worthy ninja among you lot, Madara said, his Sharingan scanning the crowd in front of him. I think that was enough warm-up, don't you agree? Let's start taking this fight a little more seriously, Madara said, as he started making hand seals. Fire release, majestic destroying flame. Madara expelled a stream of fire that quickly widened into a gigantic wall of flames, big enough to engulf half the second division, much to said ninja's shock and horror. Water release users, counter that jutsu, now. Kuratsuchi hollered. Once again, Kuratsuchi's words snapped her troops out of their fear-induced stupor, and those with water affinities quickly began to form hand seals. Water release, water wall. The combination of dozens of water jutsu formed a tsunami large enough to at least negate Madara's gigantic fire attack. There was a loud hiss as water was evaporated by the flames, and battlefield was covered in a thick cloud of steam as a result. Kuratsuchi could see how Madara took advantage of it and dashed inside the cloud. He's trying to engage us in close combat again. Kuratsuchi warned. Sensory ninja, keep track of his movements. Wind release users, dispel the steam this instant. Inside the cloud of steam, Madara once again began to slaughter allied ninjas unimpeded, the lack of visibility not slowing him down in the slightest. He was about to execute a terrified Kiri ninja, when he suddenly stopped, as he was astonished by something he sensed. This chakra. How it can be. Would release, deep forest emergence. The ground started to shake around Madara, and soon, the Uchiha was surrounded by multiple wooden vines. Madara managed to nimbly dodge them before they could grab a hold of him. However, his mind was focused on something else. No, it's not his chakra. Plus, the scale of the attack is too small to be him, Madara guessed. He tracked the source of chakra, until he finally found its origin, a girl no older than 13, with spiky white hair styled into 2 long pigtails. I see. A descendant. She doesn't look like Hashirama in the slightest, but her chakra is too similar not to be related to him. She has potential, but she's too young and lacks the power that comes with age and experience. Perhaps I could kill her family in order to motivate her to become strong enough to beat me? She might have the potential to be an enemy as challenging as would release, would dragon jutsu. Madara was startled upon sensing another spike of would release chakra, mostly because this one came from another source other than the white-haired girl. A serpentine dragon emerged from underground, and lunged at Madara. Following the dragon towards its point of origin, Madara could see that the caster was a brown-haired girl, a couple years older than the white-haired one, with purple marks on her cheeks, and green marks around her eyes and forehead, identical to those that appeared on Hashirama when he used Sage Mode. The girl was strangely familiar to him, but it took him very little to recognize her. Oh, I remember you now, Madara said, as ghostly blue ribcages formed around his body, before they generated a gigantic blue skeletal arm. The Susanoo arm grabbed the wood dragon by the neck and slammed it against the ground, shattering it to pieces. "You're the broken girl Obito brought to me, hoping that I could save you before it was too late." "So you're the one who made me like this," Rin replied, her yellow eyes narrowing in anger. "And you're complaining? Not only you are alive, but you now possess a power most men could only dream of having." Madara replied, as his Susanoo vanished. "You should be fighting alongside Obito's side, yet here you are, spitting on his love for you and my gift." "Gift? Huh. Don't pretend like you did it out of the goodness of your heart. I was nothing but a test subject, right?" Rin asked. "The second cocoon, it was you inside it, am I right?" Madara couldn't help but smirk. Clever girl. Before the conversation could continue, the corner of Madara's eye caught a projectile flying towards him from above. He managed to jump aside just as the projectile opened a large hole in the grassy ground. 3 more projectiles followed the first one, which he also dodged, and the Uchiha could see they were perfectly round black orbs with a purple gleam. Truth-seeking balls? Who is powerful enough to? Madara asked in shock, as he saw the orbs return to their master, and floating in the air above the bulk of the division was yet another young girl, the same age as the white-haired one, covered in a cloak of magenta chakra flames. Another flying girl. Her chakra is extremely potent. Can it be 6 paths chakra? But how can somebody so young Madara stopped his train of thought, remembering one of Zetsu's reports about the current Hyuga clan head and her sister possessing an advanced Byakugan, supposedly coming from Sage of 6 Paths' brother, who lived in the moon. While finding this information pretty far-fetched, the fact that it was Zetsu who said it, and the fact that Akatsuki did have a member claiming he came from the moon with said advanced eyes, not to mention the girl that was currently facing him, Madara had to accept this reality for now. The Hyuga with the Tensigen sent the 4 truth-seeking balls at Madara again. Despite being the first time he saw them, Madara knew of their existence and what they could do, meaning that he had to avoid them at all costs. Fortunately, the Uchiha had the perfect strategy to counter them. Like he did before, he managed to incapacitate and grab an allied ninja, one from Konoha, and used him as a human shield, intercepting a truth-seeking ball that was aimed for him. The poor allied ninja died on the spot. Shit. Hanabi cringed, as she hastily recalled the truth-seeking balls. "You have power, girl, but you won't be able to tap into your full potential as long as you care about the life of worthless maggots." Madara spat, as he threw the corpse of the ninja the Tensigen-wielding Hyuga had inadvertently killed. The corpse crashed against her, and was knocked out of the sky. Hanabi, the white-haired girl with the wood release, cried, as she went to check on Hanabi. Wood release, wood binding jutsu. Madara sensed the girl Obito asked him to save gathering and shaping chakra for another attack, and indeed, wooden roots emerged under his feet and tried to wrap around him. But before they had the chance to, Madara reactivated the ribcage of his Susanoo, which he used as a protective shield. No matter how hard the wooden roots constricted the ghostly ribcage, it didn't crack. Don't bother. You might think you have a great power compared to your peers. We may have undergone the same rejuvenation process and have the same power, but compared to me, even with Sage Mode you are nothing but an insect, Madara said, as he started to make hand seals. And now that I think about it, I haven't used any of my new powers yet. Well, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and show you the difference between the level of our powers. Wood release, deep forest bloom. The whole battleground started to shake while multiple cracks opened around it, as many, gigantic wooden roots and trees started to emerge. As they grew and spread around the area, flowers started to bloom around them. Said flowers began pumping yellow pollen into the air. While the allied ninjas didn't know what were its effects, they were wise enough to realize they shouldn't get near it. What the hell? He can use wood release too? Kuratsuchi asked in shock. Don't breathe that pollen. Rin warned, as she covered her mouth and nose with her hand. Or else you'll be knocked out. Despite Rin's warning, though, the clouds of pollen saturated the air around the battlefield, and many ninjas inadvertently breathed it. The effect was immediate, and they fell to the ground, completely knocked out. Kuratsuchi looked at this, and gritted her teeth. Wind release users, blow the pollen away, she ordered, as she elevated higher into the air in order to avoid breathing the pollen, while making several hand seals. Everybody else, destroy those goddamned flowers. Fire release, Great Dragon Fire. Kuratsuchi exhaled a large stream of fire towards a nearby flower, while other ninjas did the same, mostly using fire and lightning jutsu, and a Konoha kunoichi with brown hair styled in twin buns unsealed a gigantic shuriken that she used to cut the flowers down. Madara, however, merely smirked in amusement at his enemy's attempt at destroying the flowers. You care about those flowers too much, Madara said, shaking his head, as he started to make hand seals. Wood release, Mass Wood Clone Jutsu. Wooden Madara clones started to emerge from the roots and trees across the battlefield. Said clones quickly jumped out of the trees once they were fully formed, and started engaging the allied ninjas. The wood clones proved to be just as skilled and deadly as the original, if much more fragile. Madara watched in slight amusement and some disappointment, how the vast majority of the enemies struggled to deal with jutsu that weren't even that powerful. These clones only have a 10% of my total power, yet they're giving you as much trouble as my real self, Madara said boredly, crossing his arms as he watched the carnage unfold. How can you call yourselves water release, wild water wave, lightning release, thunder spear? Madara was snapped out of his arrogant monologue when he sensed two attacks aimed at him. He was soon under the shadow of a large tsunami that threatened to crush him under tons of water. Madara, however, was able to jump into the air just as the wave crashed against the ground, and landed on the surface of the mass of water. That moment, however, a spear-shaped lightning bolt hit the water, electrifying it, and zapping Madara. Ack, the Uchiha grunted, though it was more due being caught by surprise, rather than the pain produced by the electric attack. He saw in front of him the white-haired girl with the wood release, next to a white-haired boy that looked identical to her, only a bit taller and with broader shoulders, as well as much shorter hair. Oh, it's you again. And your brother, I presume? We're your opponents. That's the only thing you should concern yourself with, the boy replied. Why? That's a boring outlook to battles. I want to know everything about my enemies, Madara said, chuckling a little, as if the whole battle was nothing but a big game to him. Say, are you two related to Hashirama Senju? Yeah, we're his great-grandkids, the girl replied. Name's Kaida, and this is my brother Hagane. And we're going to resume the family tradition of kicking your ass so hard you won't be able to sit down without remembering us. So, Hashirama's bloodline limit finally manifested once again after neither his children nor grandchildren inherited it, Madara noted. His eyes then rested on Hagane. Can you use wood release like your sister? Hagane scowled upon hearing such a question. No, I don't. Not that I needed to fight you or anybody else. Regrettable, Madara said, shaking his head. But even then I can still see something special about you. Yes, it seemed that you inherited something from my rival as well. Hashirama was able to enter Sage mode instantly and draw nature energy without having to stay still. The way I see how your chakra differs from your sister's, I see you inherited that from him, so you aren't a waste of genes like the rest of his offspring. So, do you plan to fight me yourselves? While I can see you have potential and power for two so young, you are no match for me, not even before gaining all this power, Madara said. Perhaps you would have defeated our great-grandpa if you weren't so arrogant and full of yourself, Hagane said, as he held out a fist to his sister. Ready, Kaida? Kaida nodded, and bumped her fist with his. Ready. Hagane started to transfer some of his senjutsu chakra to his twin sister, as the two young teens started to make one-handed seals with their free hands. Wood release, Kanzi and Lotus King. Hagane and Kaida slammed their free hands into the ground, as a giant wooden statue of a praying monk rose from the ground. There were multiple arms growing from the statue's back, and the statue had 5 small heads encircling its head. The twins were standing at the top of the statue's head. "How do you like this, huh?" Kaida taunted. Some of the many arms growing on the giant wooden monk's back shot forward, ready to smash Madara to pulp. The Uchiha, looking unimpressed and even bored, began to jump and leap from one side to another in order to avoid the wooden fists. After one fist almost grazed his shoulder, the Uchiha smirked. "Definitely not bad, for a couple of young brats, that's it," he said, as he continued dodging giant punches. "You two definitely have potential. Maybe one day you'll be able to create the real deal." "I'll give you a real deal," Kaida said, as she made a single-hand seal. "All is suffering." The small heads encircling the giant wooden monk's forehead started to glow with chakra, and each of them released a stream of one of the 5 elemental nature attacks. Madara merely leaped backwards, dodging the blast, but had to shield his eyes with his arm to protect them from the wind and pebbles raised by the ensuing explosion. The giant wooden monk advanced again, the small heads glowing with chakra as they prepared to fire again. "That attack is pretty powerful. Let's see how well it does against mine," Madara said, as he began to make hand seals. Fire release, majestic demolishing flame. Madara exhaled a huge stream of fire towards the incoming quintuple elemental blast. Unlike his previous fire jutsu, instead of being spread in a cone, the flames were focused into a single, fixed stream. Both attacks clashed in the middle, but Madara's jutsu proved to be the superior one, and started to push the statue's multi-elemental stream towards it, much to the twins' shock. "How is he able to overpower our jutsu?" Hagane asked. "Is he just that strong? Let's worry about that later. Now do something before he burns us alive," Kaida asked, her voice raising an octave. Hagane dropped to his knees and slammed his hands onto the top of the statue's head. "I'm on it." Hagane's body was surrounded by a glowing white aura, as he used his bloodline limit to empower the chakra construct even further. The wooden statue's eyes began to glow with a white light, as so did the 5 small heads releasing the elemental attacks. The 5 elemental streams became thicker and larger, and they began to push Madara's fire attack back towards him. "Yes. Good job, bro," Kaida cheered, pumping a fist. While Madara was still casting his fire jutsu, he began to weave even more hand seals. Wood release, wood binding jutsu. The earth shook for a moment under the giant wooden statue, as large wooden roots burst from underground, and wrapped around it, threatening to make it tumble, and making it fall backwards, causing the 5 elemental attack to shoot upwards instead of towards Madara. Unimpeded, Madara's fire jutsu barreled towards the statue, setting it ablaze. Kaida and Hagane managed to jump out of the head just a second before being incinerated. They landed on the ground, and saw the statue broke down into many pieces of burning wood. Kaida turned around, and pierced Madara with an angry glare. "Hey, that's cheating," Kaida protested, gritting her teeth. The Uchiha smirked. "Cheating, she says." "You're such an adorable kid," Madara said in a condescending tone, shaking his head and chuckling a little. "Do you have anything else to offer, or was that your last hidden ace? Because that last trick didn't even push me to use Susanoo." Suddenly, both Madara and the twins sensed a surprisingly powerful chakra strike coming from behind them. Turning around, the twins saw a giant chakra construct in the shape of a horned, four-armed woman stomping their way towards them. Inside the head of said chakra construct was Hanabi, with 2 clones at each side sitting in the lotus position, drawing nature energy and funneling it towards the chakra giantess. "Thanks for keeping him distracted while I gathered nature energy for the avatar of Kalika, guys," Hanabi said from within the construct. "Everybody, stand back. I'll deal with Madara myself." The Senja twins nodded, and quickly leaped out of the way, leaving Madara alone against the chakra colossus. The Uchiha didn't move, he simply let his arms fall to the sides. So, you're able to produce cheap imitation of a Susanoo, Madara said, raising an eyebrow. Still, I can see that this avatar of Kalika radiates power. Perhaps you'll give me a better dance than the rest of these fools, Madara commented, as he started to make hand seals. Let's test how resilient it is. Wood release, wood dragon jutsu. Another serpentine wooden dragon burst from the ground in front of Madara, and lunged towards Hanabi's chakra construct. The dragon tried to wrap itself around the avatar's body, but the avatar used two of its hands to grab it and keep it in place, and the other two to deliver brutal hand chops that cut the dragon in three parts. Well, that wasn't half bad, Madara complimented. Hanabi didn't say anything, and had the avatar chuck the pieces of the wood dragon at its creator, while making several hand seals herself. Fire release, crimson phoenix flare. Hanabi breathed a massive stream of fire that quickly took the shape of a bird. As it barreled down towards Madara, it engulfed the pieces of the wood dragon, setting them on fire. In response, Madara generated the upper half of his humanoid Susanoo. It was a creature that looked like an ogre with rock or armor-like skin. Each of its two arms split into two forearms at the elbow, and it had two faces whose chins bifurcated into two spikes. The Susanoo quickly batted away the pieces of burning wood tossed at him, and managed to weather Hanabi's fire jutsu with relative ease. Alright, let's see how well your avatar does against a real Susanoo, Madara boasted, as his chakra construct reached its full form and size, growing a lower body and a pair of legs, leaving Madara floating in the middle of its chest. Two glowing blue undulating blades appeared on its hands. Let's dance. Madara's Susanoo moved forward, and began the duel with a vertical slash, and Hanabi's avatar stopped the swipe by grabbing it by the blade with one of its hands. The blade released a wave of energy in every direction, strong enough to threaten to break Hanabi's avatar, but it resisted. The avatar pushed the sword away, and used the other two hands on its side to deliver a double palm strike to the Susanoo, with enough force to make it tumble backwards for a bit. Not bad. Let's see how well you do against this then, Madara said, as his Susanoo delivered a cross-shaped chop with both swords, generating an X-shaped energy shockwave towards Hanabi. Hanabi made several hand seals, as her avatar prepared to withhold the attack. Fire release, crimson phoenix flare. Hanabi once again exhaled a cone of fire, which clashed against the incoming X-shaped blast before it could take the form of a bird. Even if Madara's attack cut through hers, it did the intended job of slowing it down. The avatar then thrust all its four palms forward in a quadruple strike, dispelling Madara's attack, and generating a shockwave that expanded in every direction. Madara then charged forwards, ready to strike Hanabi's avatar down with his two chakra swords. The avatar, however, started to spin in place, generating chakra streams that spun with it as well as raising a tornado around it. 6 paths, heavenly spin. Madara brought one of his swords down, but was deflected by the avatar's spinning force. Even if the spinning wasn't as fast as the one done by a human being, and thus couldn't produce a spinning chakra dome, it had enough power to act as a repulsive barrier. Well, it seems that your so-called avatar is more resilient than I thought, Madara said, sounding a little annoyed. Still think this is just a cheap version of the Uchiha Susanoo? Hanabi smugly asked, placing her hands on her hips. Madara smirked, seemingly amused at Hanabi's bout of confidence. It's certainly more powerful than I first imagined. I wasn't expecting somebody not even old enough to bear children to display such amount of power. Complimented by the one and only Madara Uchiha. Man, that's going to look so good on my record, Hanabi said, as her avatar took again a battle stance. But not as good as the Kunoichi who defeated Madara Uchiha. Confident, are you? Madara said, quirking an eyebrow. While that construct of yours is a good match for my Susanoo in its humanoid stage, let's see how well you handle it in its armored form. This gave Hanabi pause. Armored form? Madara didn't say anything, as blue armor plates began to grow around the chakra construct, covering it completely, while also increasing in size, going from being around the same size as Hanabi's avatar, to the avatar only reaching a little below the Susanu's neck. Through her Tensigen, Hanabi could see the chakra forming this new Susanu was much stronger. She visibly gulped upon realizing that she no longer had the upper hand against her opponent. And just like that, your confidence is all gone, Madara said in an insultingly jovial tone. Then again, you should feel proud of yourself. The number of enemies that pushed me to use this form of my Susanoo can be counted with one hand. So, I'll make the most of this rare opportunity. Without further ado, Madara's armored Susanoo charged forward, cracking the earth beneath its feet. A katana formed on the Susanoo's hands, and in less than a second, delivered a powerful blow at the head of Hanabi's avatar. The avatar managed to jump away and avoid the swing in time, but even if the initial strike missed, the sword released a wave of cutting chakra forward. Making several hand seals, Hanabi ignited the avatar's hands on fire. Fire release, double burning palm strike. Using its lower arms, the avatar delivered a double palm blow at the incoming wave of chakra, shattering it into thousands of tiny dots of lights. Even if it took her some effort, the fact that she was able to nullify Madara's attack restored some of her previous confidence. My turn, Hanabi said, as she made the avatar to rush forward. 8 trigrams, several hundred palm strikes. Once it reached close-quarter combat, the avatar assaulted Madara with an onslaught of palm strikes with all its 4 arms, moving so quickly, most people could only make a magenta blur. The Susanoo raised its arms in order to protect itself. Each hand struck with both power and precision, pushing the Susanoo back a little with each hit. However, despite all the strikes landing, they failed to make a dent on the Uchiha's formidable defenses. What the? I'm not making any damage, Hanabi asked in shock and indignation. The Susanoo managed to block one of the palm strikes, and with a mighty shoulder bash, it pushed the avatar backwards, taking several steps back and threatening to fall on its back. Fortunately, Hanabi was able to keep it in balance. There's a reason as for why I call this from the armored Susanoo, little Hyuga, Madara said with a smirk. But a good defense isn't the only thing this form has. Now behold. Madara's Susanoo charged once again. It raised its arms, and a katana of chakra appeared between its hands. It brought the weapon down in a downward slash, which Hanabi's avatar blocked between the palms of the hands of its upper arms. However, while it stopped its momentum, the blow carried so much power that the hands of the avatar were blown to bits. Whoa! Hanabi cried in shock, sensing part of her avatar disappear. She hastily focused her chakra into the hands in order to regenerate them. However, Madara wasn't going to give her any time to catch her breath. The Susanoo continued its assaults, with both brutal sword slashes and devastating stark punches. Hanabi tried to block every hit, but each strike chipped away parts of Hanabi's avatar, while pushing it backwards, leaving her almost no room to counterattack. While you're still weak, I can see you have potential as well. Perhaps once you reach maturity, you might provide a decent challenge, Madara judged, as he made a single-hand seal. The Susanoo held his free hand, and a trio of Magatama-shaped chakra projectiles, spinning around an invisible axis. But for now, I'm done with you. Yasaka Magatama. The Susanoo threw the Magatamas at Hanabi's avatar. She could see the sheer amount of power the attack carried, and thus she tried one last desperate move. Heavenly Spin. Broken as it was, the avatar of Kalika began to spin in place, as protective chakra streams began to spin around it as well. It managed to gain enough speed for when Madara's projectiles impacted, resulting in a trio of explosions. Unfortunately, the avatar's defense wasn't enough, and the explosions obliterated what was left of the avatar. The explosions also hurled Hanabi towards the ground, landing with a loud thud. The chakra cloak around her dissipated, revealing her true appearance. Inside his Susanoo, Madara crossed his arms and smiled, satisfied with his work. The power of the current generation of ninjas might be a little disappointing, but the power of the current generation of little girls is truly something, Madara commented. The former Uchiha patriarch then noticed two powerful chakra signatures closing in. Oh. A new challenger Amaterasu. Suddenly, Madara's Susanoo burst into black flames from head to toe. The black fire began to quickly devour the chakra construct at an alarming rate. Madara tried to push more chakra into the Susanoo in order to repair it and put out the fire, but no matter what he did, the fire simply didn't disappear, nor slowed down in the slightest. What kind of fire jutsu is this? Madara wondered aloud as he abandoned the Susanoo, which quickly collapsed into nothingness, before the black flames could consume him. That moment, two individuals, men wearing high-collared clothes typical of the Uchiha, both young but older than the little girls he had been fighting against, landed in front of him. And indeed, the Sharingan blazing in their eyes confirmed their identities. In that case, you might be interested in seeing, the older one began. The power of the current generation of Uchiha, the younger one finished. Madara eyed the two newcomers, as if sizing them up. He could sense the power of their chakra was nothing to scoff at. He didn't need to look at their eyes to know that these two had the Mangekyo Sharingan, given that the only kind of Uchiha chakra that felt like these two's was the one of his sadly late brother, Izuna. Well, Madara said, smiling again. Look at that. At first glance, you two both look and feel powerful. Old enough to have some combat experience, but still in your prime. It seems that the gods above were generous enough to bless me with an actual challenge. What are your names? We're family, after all. If you really want to know, my name's Itachi, and that's my little brother, Sasuke, Itachi said. Sasuke, Madara repeated, grimacing as if he ate something sour. Like the Sarutobi clan head? Whose elder son was Hashirama and Tobirama's protege. Such an unbefitting name of an Uchiha. You don't like my name? Too bad, Sasuke replied, scowling a little. Because it's the name of the ninja that will send you where you belong, 2 meters underground. Speaking of which, how can you be alive? Itachi asked. We already know thanks to Rin Noera how you returned to your prime and gained wood release, but that doesn't explain how you survived your final fight against Hashirama Senju. He brought your body to the village, where it was confirmed as dead, and that it was indeed you. Tobirama spent the next few months performing an extensive autopsy on your body, before finally giving you a burial on an unknown location. There's no way you could have feigned death for such a long time. Ah, yes, that's quite the mystery, isn't it? Madara asked, as if the question amused him. The answer is way simpler than you think, my esteemed clansman. You sure look like somebody familiar with the forbidden jutsu Izanagi. Izanagi? Itachi repeated. Like the jutsu Danzo used to avoid death? Sasuke asked, as he recalled Shursui and Shizen's recount of the battle. How? While Izanagi can undo death, it only works in a very short time frame. Madara smirked. Why? Who decided that? Izanagi is a jutsu that allows to rewrite reality on a personal level. You can rewrite your death immediately if you wish so, but you can also delay it so your death is undone at any amount of time afterwards. Had Tobirama destroyed my corpse, it would have been my end, but I knew that, even when he was done with it, he wouldn't want to cast it away and would keep it in a proper condition. So once we kill you, we'll make sure to burn your body so not even ashes remain, Sasuke stated. Thanks for sharing such knowledge with us. You presume that you can kill me, Madara said with a chuckle. He then slipped into a fighting stance. Anyway, enough chit-chat. It's been very long since I danced with a fellow Uchiha. Show me the power of your generation. Madara's hand flew through hand seals. Wood release, deep forest emergence. The earth around the Uchiha brothers was split as big, thick wooden roots emerged from underground, and spread towards the two Konoha ninjas. Sasuke and Itachi were quick to answer, their hands also weaving hand seals as fast as they could. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Sasuke breathed a massive fireball towards the incoming mass of roots, while Itachi exhaled a volley of smaller fireballs for support. The two combined fire jutsu set the growing roots ablaze, successfully stopping Madara's attack. Then, a katana blade burst from Itachi's chest. The older Uchiha brother coughed a streak of blood. Itachi! Sasuke screamed, upon noticing Madara impaling Itachi from behind. You might be an Uchiha, but your Sharingan must be a poor one if you didn't see me sneak from behind you, Madara taunted, as he twisted the blade inside Itachi. Perhaps you aren't the worthy opponent I pegged you as. Then, much to Madara's surprise, Itachi turned his head back at him and smiled. Then what comes next may change your opinion on me. And Itachi burst into a murder of cawing crows, which started to fly around the former Uchiha clan head, molting black wings as they cawed loudly, while pecking Madara with their black beaks. The former Uchiha clan head snarled. Using a genjutsu against me. You have some nerve, brat, Madara said, as he used his own Sharingan to break the genjutsu. The world around Madara flickered for a fraction of a second before it returned to normal, just in time to catch Sasuke about to strike him with his lightning-enhanced katana. Madara jumped back to avoid it, but then Sasuke delivered an horizontal swing with his other hand, holding a shoto whose blade was coated in flames, which Madara also dodged. Still, Sasuke was undeterred, and continued his assault, delivering quick swings from multiple angles and directions, though Madara managed to either dodge them or block them by parrying Sasuke's wrists. One can put me in a genjutsu, and the other is able to manipulate two elements at once. Yes, you two have talent. Of course, I shouldn't expect any less from my fellow clansmen, should I? Madara said with a grin, as he started to make hand seals. I don't know about you, but I think I'm done with warm-ups. Let's get to the good parts, shall we? Wood release, Deep Forest Emergence. More large wooden roots emerged from under Sasuke and Itachi's feet, quickly wrapping around them and hoisting them into the air. Madara then manifested his Susanoo in its humanoid form, and generating a sword on each on its arms, brought them down in order to obliterate the Uchiha Borthers. However, the brothers manifested their own Susanoo as well, breaking free of their wooden bindings, and jumping away just in time to avoid Madara's strike. Sasuke and Itachi's Susanoo continued to develop until they reached their humanoid forms. Sasuke's Susanoo pulled the string of its shielded bow, generating a purple chakra arrow, while Magatama beads-like projectiles appeared on Itachi's Susanoo's hands. Susanoo, Arrow Strike. Yasaka Magatama. Purple chakra arrows and red chakra projectiles flew in combination towards Madara's Susanoo, who tried to deflect them with both its swords, but was unable to block all of them, and many found their marks, resulting in several explosions that chipped away a few chunks of Madara's Susanoo. Yes. Yes. This is what I was talking about. Madara said, growing more excited by the second. Show me what you're capable of. Madara's Susanoo progressed to the armored form, and charged towards the Uchiha brothers, the ground beneath its feet breaking with each step. Sasuke and Itachi continued firing projectiles at it, with Madara blocking some and tanking others, but the armored Susanoo didn't break as easily as the humanoid one. Before he could reach close-quarter combat, the blue Susanoo leaped above them. Sasuke and Itachi started to weave hand seals. Fire release, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. Both Sasuke and Itachi fired a flurry of dragon-shaped fireballs at the incoming Susanoo, half of them missing and flying into the sky, the other half crashing into it, but not making any effect. Madara's Susanoo landed in the middle of the other two chakra constructs with a loud crash, blasting them to the sides with the sheer force of its impact, almost falling on their backs due losing their balance. Setting his eyes on Sasuke, Madara made his Susanoo move towards the younger brother, and struck the purple chakra construct with a large katana. Sasuke's Susanoo raised his shielded bow in order to parry the blow. While it resisted the attack, the shield cracked a little, much to the young Uchiha's worry. He generated a katana on the Susanu's free hand and used it to stab Madara, but the blue Susanu easily deflected the blow to the side, before taking Sasuke Susanoo down with a powerful shoulder bash. Before Madara could continue his assault, several explosions on his Susanoo's back nearly made it fall on its face. Turning around, he saw Itachi's own Red Warrior charging at him, wielding a sword made of golden flames. Madara parried Itachi's swing, managing to stand his ground, before shoving the older brother with a powerful kick. "Come on, you started so well. Is this the extent of your full power?" Madara asked, a little disappointed. He sensed a spike of chakra coming from behind him, and his Susanoo jumped aside just in time to dodge an arrow from Sasuke's Susanoo, this time coated in the black flames of Amaterasu. Sasuke fired more arrows, this time at Madara's Susanoo's leg, forcing it to jump. While in the air, Sasuke kept firing Amaterasu-coated arrows, most of them missing and getting lost into the sky, but a couple of them managed to find their mark. Pushing chakra into his left eye, Sasuke had the black flames spread all around Madara's Susanoo. Still, his enemy refused to abandon the chakra construct. "Either you get out of your Susanoo, or the black flames shall consume you, leaving nothing but ashes," Sasuke prodded. Madara merely smirked in return. "That's what you want, don't you? To force me out of my Susanoo and into the open. But this Susanoo form has a couple surprises." Madara made a hand seal, and the armor covering his Susanoo, some of which was burning the fires of Amaterasu, detached from the main body, falling to the ground. Another coat of chakra plates instantly formed around it. "Your little trick with the black flames won't work a second time," Madara replied. "Don't worry, I have more little tricks," Sasuke said, as a thunderclap was heard in the distance. "Your Susanoo won't be able to survive them." "You youths are so overconfident," Madara said, sounding between amusing and insulted. "Very well then. This isn't something I use against any enemy, but given your skill, the blood ties that bind us, and the excessive confidence you exude, I'm going to include you among the exclusive list of foes I have used this against." Madara's armored Susanoo grew in size once again, reaching 100 meters in size, becoming twice as big as Sasuke and Itachi's, its armor taking the form of those worn by samurai. Its head was completely covered by a long-nosed mask that resembled a tengu. A pair of large wings ended in hands grew from its back, the hands holding a pair of sheaths that held two katanas made of the same chakra as the Susanoo. "Behold the magnificence of the perfect Susanoo, and despair," Madara boasted, spreading his arms in a dramatic fashion. "Only Hashirama was able to defeat this Susanoo. What do you plan to do against this, young Sasuke? Do you think you have a way to fight against me as I'm now?" Sasuke looked up at the immense chakra construct, but much to Madara's surprise, didn't look intimidated or afraid in the slightest. "That's quite the big Susanoo. Even bigger than father's," Sasuke mentioned, as the sword of his Susanoo was coated in black flames, while the other hand was coated in lightning. More thunderclaps could be heard from above. "But it will go down the same way. Itachi, you ready?" From behind Madara, Itachi's Susanoo readied its sword of Tatsuka, but made no attempt to attack. "As ready as I'll ever be, brother," Itachi said. "We must not fail." "We won't," Sasuke said, as he dashed towards the blue Susanoo, flaming black sword in one hand, lightning chakra in the other. He leaped at Madara. Madara snarled in disgust. "Charging at me so recklessly with an inferior Susanoo," Madara said, as his own Susanoo unsheathed one of its katanas. "You will pay your foolishness with your life." Infernal release, Susanoo, Kirin blazing lightning blade. As Madara's Susanoo delivered a swing at Sasuke's, a lightning bolt fell from the sky and struck the sword of Sasuke's Susanoo, supercharging it with electricity, as he brought it down. His lightning and Amaterasu-enhanced sword cut through Madara's as if it was made of butter, before it struck the chest of Madara's Susanoo. All the energy stored in the blade was released at once, resulting in an explosion of white light and black flames. While the backlash of the explosion destroyed Sasuke's Susanoo, sending the younger Uchiha spiraling down to the ground below, Madara's Susanoo had taken the brunt of the blast, and was vaporized almost instantly. Madara himself survived the explosion, since his Susanoo absorbed most of the blast, but he was sent flying backwards, in Itachi's direction. Seeing his chance, Itachi moved towards Madara, and swung the sword of Tatsuka at him. The sword impaled Madara, the blade piercing his chest and coming out of his back. Yes! Sasuke cried, excited to see that the plan they used to disable Fugaku had worked a second time. All Itachi needed to do was seal Madara, and the battle would be over. Which made Sasuke wonder why Itachi wasn't sealing Madara. Looking at his elder brother, Itachi looked like somebody who was struggling to do something. A cold chill ran through Sasuke's spine. Itachi! Sasuke called. Seal him already. What are you waiting for? I'm trying to. But I can't seal him for some reason. Itachi said. What do you mean you can't seal him? Sasuke replied, as his fears started to become reality. I thought that once you hit an enemy with that sword, it was over. Then, Madara wrapped his fingers around the sword of golden flames, and much to Itachi's shock, he began to absorb it into his body. And when he was done absorbing the sword, the rest of his Susanoo followed, pulling it away from Itachi. Madara crouch-landed on his feet, his face looking downwards, partially obscured by his wild long hair. Well, that was a close one, Madara said as he slowly rose up. You two have both power and work really well together. You remind me of the days when my brother Izuna and I used to fight each other. However, what you have, it's not enough to beat me. Madara rose his head, his face being visible, and much to Itachi and Sasuke's shock, his eyes were no longer the red and black colors of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but purple concentrical rings. Rinnegan. How? Itachi asked, when a memory dawned upon him. Of course. Any Uchiha sufficiently powerful can awaken the Rinnegan by combining their yin half of the 6-half chakra with the yang half the Senju and Uzumaki possess. I see you did your homework, Madara said, smiling contentedly. If you know the Rinnegan, I guess you must have met Nagato, am I right? How do you know about Nagato? Sasuke asked. Madara chuckled. Who do you think Nagato's Rinnegan used to belong to? Wait, Nagato's Rinnegan wasn't his? It was yours? But how? Sasuke asked again. There were far too many questions inside his head. Something that Madara apparently noticed. It's a long story, but guess I can summarize it. Let's say that, after my fight with Hashirama, I managed to bite off a piece of his flesh in order to obtain his essence. I cultivated more of his cells and implanted them into my body. In time, I managed to gain wood release, but the Rinnegan didn't manifest until many decades later. I was a withered old man, and while I could experiment a little with my new powers, I knew letting the world know about my survival in such state was suicide. Among my new powers, I was able to summon the demonic statue of the Outer Path, and using its power, I managed to create an artificial creature from Hashirama's cells that I called Zetsu. I also devised a way that, even if it could take time, it would bring me back to my physical prime and merge my power with Hashirama's in a more efficient way. I knew I could use Zetsu and his clones to act on my behalf, but wouldn't be able to carry my plans on their own. I needed somebody to carry out my plans to bring the 10 Tails back to life while I underwent the rejuvenation process. I had my Zetsu scout for potential candidates to bear my Rinnegan, and Nagato was the most promising. That's why, shortly before I met Obito, I had my Rinnegan extracted and transplanted into Nagato by Zetsu. Obito found Nagato and convinced him to carry out my plan. I was expecting that by the time of my rebirth, they should be close to finishing, but alas, his progress wasn't as good as I was hoping. But let's not dwell in negativity, shall we? Madara said, as he raised both his hands towards Sasuke and Itachi. Let's have some fun first with the powers I was never able to test in an actual battle. Dansho Tenin. Both Itachi and Sasuke were pulled by an incredibly powerful invisible force towards Madara. Itachi, however, quickly generated his Susanoo, using one arm to catch Sasuke and the other to anchor himself to the ground. Sasuke also generated the ribcage and one arm of his Susanoo in order to punch Madara, but the Uchiha elder simply jumped back in order to avoid the attack. Not bad. Let's see what else I can do, Madara said, as two pairs of arms burst from his sides. The four additional arms then opened up and reassembled into weapons, as if they were machines. Madara then fired a barrage of missiles and chakra beams at the Uchiha brothers, who were forced to split apart and run away in order to avoid the attack, even if barely. Itachi. He's pushing us into the defensive. Sasuke warned his brother. We need to counterattack, now. Agreed. Fighting from afar isn't an option if he can absorb our ninjutsu, Itachi said. Let's attack from a different flank each. Gripping their katanas, the Uchiha brothers dashed towards Madara, who continued to bombard them with missiles, chakra beams, and streams of flames, which they deflected with their Susanoo. As they got closer and prepared to strike, Madara's additional arms disappeared as he held his two arms towards the incoming brothers. Shinra Tensei. The air shimmered for a second, followed by an explosion of kinetic energy that ripped part of the ground and sent Sasuke and Itachi flying backwards, their weapons blown away from their hands, before painfully landing with a thud back on the ground. He was already a monster before, and now with that Rinnegan, how are we going to beat him? Itachi asked, sounding desperate. Come on, Itachi, I know you have a hidden ace in the hole prepared for a situation like this. Sasuke said, sounding also a little desperate. Some kind of secret ninjutsu or forbidden jutsu, like a genjutsu that traps him inside an infinite loop or something similar? Sasuke, this isn't the time nor the place to suggest such nonsense, Itachi said, as he got back to his feet as well as he could. And I'm afraid I have nothing that may turn the tide of the battle in our favor. The Rinnegan is the most powerful dojutsu for a reason, and one of the most powerful ninjas who ever lived is using it against us. Madara didn't give them any time to recover or plan a new strategy, as he held his hands towards them once again. Dansho Tenin. Just as they got back to their feet, Sasuke and Itachi were once again violently pulled towards Madara by an unseen force. The Uchiha brothers were too disoriented to properly manifest their Susanoo in order to counter Madara's jutsu like they did it the first time, while Madara himself generated his Susanoo once again up to the humanoid form, a blade of chakra on each hand, ready to kill his kin with a single strike. It pains me having to kill such talented clansmen like yourselves. Too bad you choose the wrong side of this conflict. Now dash, would release, would binding jutsu. That moment, wooden roots emerged under Madara's Susanoo, wrapping around its body and arms, leaving it completely immobilized, stopping him from delivering the finish blow to Sasuke and Itachi, who were also caught by a pair of smaller roots. Madara turned around and saw Rin Noera, piercing him with a yellow glare, her hands locked into a hand seal. Earth release, crushing avalanche. Several gigantic rocks appeared around Madara's Susanoo, burying it completely. Unfortunately, both the rocks and the roots were blown away when Madara's Susanoo advanced to the armored form. The test subject. I had forgotten about you, Madara said, looking annoyed of being cheated of his execution. His lips curved into a smile as an idea dawned upon him. His Susanoo started to vanish. Then again, given that you're here, and you're still in sage mode, let me try something. Dansho Tenin. Madara raised a hand at Rin, and the brown-haired medic yelped as she was pulled towards the evil Uchiha, his fingers wrapping around her neck once she was close enough to him, and before Rin could fight back, he violently slammed her body against the ground, with such force it opened a small crater. Senjutsu is something that takes a lot of time and effort to master, but according to Zetsu, it's almost like a second nature to you, isn't it? Can you imagine what's the reason? Madara asked. Gakido. Madara started to absorb Rin's chakra, saturated with nature energy. Rin's yellow eyes began to revert back to their natural brown, and her green facial marks started to vanish little by little, as they began to appear on Madara's face. As his sensing ability heightened, he could sense Sasuke and Itachi dashing towards him, in a desperate attempt to either save the girl or prevent Madara from growing even more powerful. Probably both. Not that it mattered, as Madara casually manifested his Susanoo once again, and with a swipe of its arm, he swatted the Uchiha brothers away as if they were mere insects. Once he drained all the Senjutsu chakra of Rin, he released her. The girl didn't make any attempt to run away from him, or even get back to her feet. It appeared that having so much chakra drained left her in a dazed state. Oh well, she'd recover soon thanks to her regeneration. Yes, I can feel it now. Normally, one would need to stay still for some time in order to gather nature energy. But Hashirama was able to do so instantly, and when he moved. Wood release was far from his only unique ability, Madara said, as his eyes drifted towards a certain chakra signature. One belonged to Hagane. Looking into such direction, Madara saw the white-haired Senju treating the Hyuga with the Tensigen, while his sister helped other ninjas to fight some of the remaining wood clones. He heard a pained grunt coming from below, and looking down, saw the barely conscious Rin stirring. I have no more reason to keep you alive. But then again, Obito would be very disappointed in me if he heard that I let you die, Madara said, shaking his head. Plus it would be a waste after all the resources I poured to repair your broken body. Madara moved from the spot Rin was lying on, and gave a look at the battlefield. He had sensed that more than half of his clones had been destroyed already, and the rest would soon follow. Then again, Madara could sense that no present ninja was a match to his current self right now. He considered to have the wood clones use Susanoo to finish things off quickly, but discarded the idea. He had a better way to end this battle. Oh, Hashirama, if you only were here, if you could witness the current height of my power no matter how strong I became, I'm sure you'd manage to give me a challenging fight, unlike the rabble before me. Then again, even if I can't get more good fights from these people, Madara then raised his hand to the sky. I can still use them to test the limits of my new power. Chibaku Tensei. A marble-sized, black-colored gravity core appeared on Madara's hand, before it shot into the sky. Once it reached enough altitude, it grew in size, before splitting into 6 identical gravity cores, and shot into different directions, positioning on different parts of the battleground. Then, the cores became active, and started to pull matter towards them. And that moment is where the horror truly began. As the fight against the real Madara happened, Team Guy was facing several of the many wood clones Madara had created. After scanning them with his Byakugan, Niji claimed that they only possessed a small fraction of the original's power. Still, a small fraction of Madara's power wasn't something to take lightly, given that said clones had been able to defeat and even kill veteran Jonin. Lee was engaging a clone in a duel of punches and kicks. Madara was fast, but between Lee's insane speed without his weights and the boost provided by 3 of the celestial gates opened, it was the green-clad team was marking the pace of the fight. During one of their exchanges, Lee managed to wrap his arms around Madara's extended arm as he aimed for a punch. Niji, get ready, Lee said, as he started to spin in place. With such speed, a small tornado formed around him. When he had built enough momentum, he tossed the clone in the Hyuga's general direction. Heavenly spin. Niji turned into a sinning dome of chakra, just a second before the Madara clone was slammed against him. The combination of the powerful rotation and the force Lee had used to throw the clone was too much, and it burst into thousands of wooden splinters. And not far from there, Guy and Tenten were also fighting another wood clone. Said clone had the same troubles keeping up with Guy as the other one with Lee, especially since, unlike Lee who fought barehanded, Guy had pulled out his trusted nunchakus for added power. Guy channeled chakra through his weapons, increasing their range and power, and producing powerful blasts of wind even if they missed their mark. Huh. After fighting the original, these clones are nothing but a joke. Guy boasted, as he dodged a roundhouse kick from said clone. Taking advantage of the clone's brief but crucial lack of guard, Guy kicked him hard on the chest, sending him flying backwards. Up your, 10-10. You got it. 10-10 said, as she unsealed a pair of bladed tunfas from a ceiling scroll. Her tunfas started to crackle as she channeled lightning chakra through them, and delivering a few precise slashes, Madara's wooden clone was reduced to shreds. Their fights done, Team Guy gathered together in order to quickly plan their next move. Alright, 2 clones less. There can't be that many of them left, Lee excitedly said. Once we're done with them, we shall help the others deal with the real Madara. Indeed, these clones are providing a good warm-up for the real deal, Guy agreed. Now let's dash. Suddenly, the earth started to violently shake, making them to lose their balance and almost fall. Rocks and pebbles that had formed as collateral damage from the fights happening around the place started to float and fly into the air, quickly followed by small chunks of earth being teared from the ground. What the hell? 10-10 asked, as she tried to keep her balance. Niji? The Hyuga prodigy activated his Byakugan in order to find the source of the quakes, and took no time to find it. A couple hundred meters into the air above them were 6 incredibly dense spots of chakra, pulling dirt, pebbles, rock, earth and even leaves and branches towards it, quickly growing in size, and taking the form of small planetoids. Of course, all the ninjas without a Dojutsu were able to see them once they reached enough size. This, Niji began, sounding alarmed. I only saw this once before, we all did, 10-10 said, looking up in horror. This is the same jutsu that Pain Guy tried to use to destroy the village, isn't it? Except there are 6 of those giant rocks instead of just 1, Lee said, his excitement quickly vanishing, replaced with fear. And we don't have Naruto-kun nor Tsunade-sama or Jiraiya-sama to stop them to begin with. Guy looked at the forming planetoids, as he tried his best to come up with a solution. But no matter how much he racked his brain, nothing came up. The one time he saw such jutsu in action, it was thankfully stopped before it could have been used to flatten the village. He wasn't there the one time Nagato, now an undead reanimation, got to use it against the First Division, but he heard of how much death it resulted in. And now, there were 6 of these things to deal with. There was no other option. I doubt they could stop all of them even if they were here, Guy somberly said. There's only one thing to do. Everybody, run. Run as far away as possible, as fast as you can. Our only chance to survive this attack is to stay as far away as we can from when they hit the ground. Everybody who heard Guy seemed to agree with him, and started to run away while telling the others to do so as well. Soon, every member of the second division was running away in pretty much every direction. Madara watched in amusement as his enemies tried to outrun his attack, the mere sight of his sheer power sending them into a collective panic. Of course, it would be useless, since Madara had placed the gravity cores in order to cover as much area as possible when they impacted, 5 of them circumventing the bulk of the division, and the 6th one in the middle. Perhaps a few of them would escape the carnage that was about to unfold, but the rest of them would perish. Once the planetoids reached the appropriate size, Madara motioned his hand down, letting natural gravity to the rest of the work. Panic increased tenfold once they saw the planetoids coming down. But no matter how much they run, they wouldn't be fast enough to avoid the crash's area of effect. Naturally, those trapped in the middle had it the worst, since even if they could avoid the central meteor, they would still run into one of the peripheral ones. However, one Kunoichi, Kuratsuchi, noticed this, and tried to mitigate the effects of the catastrophic jutsu. Even if she had the best chances to avoid the attack thanks to her flight, she would never forgive herself to do such a cowardly thing and left her men to their fates. While everybody else ran away, Kuratsuchi placed herself floating just below the central meteor. I might not be able to stop this monster's jutsu completely, but I'll be damned if I don't try to minimize the damage, Kuratsuchi said, as she started to make hand seals. If I can destroy this meteor, I know I'll save the lives of hundreds of ninjas. After finishing the sealing sequence, she clapped her hands together, creating a square of white light between them. Normally, she'd just encase the target inside the square and then execute the jutsu, but in this situation, the target was way too big. Fortunately, that was only one of the many ways dust release could be used, albeit that one was the most chakra-efficient one. I don't know if I have enough chakra for this jutsu, but at least I have to try, Kuratsuchi said, as the square of light between her hands was compressed into a ball of white light. Dust release, obliterating light wave. The white orb between her hands exploded into a torrent of light, expanding upwards in the form of a cone. The cone managed to break through the falling meteor, growing in size and width as the young Tsuchikage poured more and more chakra, until the cone engulfed the meteor almost entirely. There was then a flash of white light, and the meteor was almost completely gone, with only a few small chunks of rock that the jutsu had failed to cover, but their size made them harmless. Due to all the chakra she had used for her jutsu, Kuratsuchi felt her head becoming light as a wave of numbness washed over her body. She was unable to sustain her light boulder jutsu, and fell to the ground below. Tsuchikage-sama, an IWA ninja cried. Quickly, somebody catch her, another one pleaded. Kuratsuchi wasn't the only one to try to stop one of the meteors, as another pair of ninja knew they had to soften the blow of Madara's attack at any cost. Come on Sasuke, the two of us at once, Itachi said, as he and his younger brother glared at the meteor closest to them. Amaterasu. A mass of black flames burst from the meteor's bottom part, and started to spread around it, as it slowly began to eat the rock and ground forming it. However, with the speed the planetoid was coming down, and slowly the black fire was spreading, they doubted they would be able to consume it completely. Damn it, that thing is too big, Sasuke said, as he focused as much chakra as he could on his left eye. Not even the two of us. Keep the jutsu up, Sasuke. We can't stop it right now, Itachi insisted. Hey, maybe I can lend you a hand, a new voice said. The brothers couldn't turn around to see the newcomer, but they recognized the voice as that of Hagane Senju. The white-haired boy placed his hands on each of the Uchiha's shoulders. He started to glow with a white aura, which quickly spread to the brothers as he placed a hand on their respective shoulders. Have some senjutsu boost. The effect was instant, and the black flames trying to eat the falling meteor roared as they burst into a black inferno, so hot and fiery that the air around it began to look distorted. The reinvigorated black flames began to quickly cover and devour the meteor, reducing it in size as it was consumed into nothingness. Sasuke, dispel the black fire now before somebody gets hurt by it. What's left of the meteor isn't a threat anymore, Itachi commanded. Got it. As quickly as it appeared, the black flames were snuffed out at the brothers' command, leaving only a very small chunk of the original meteorite. Despite Kuratsuchi, Itachi, and Sasuke's valiant efforts, 4 of the initial 6 meteors managed to crash into the ground. While no ninja was directly crushed under the gigantic pile of rocks, many of them fell prey to the ensuing shockwaves, which teared the very earth apart, producing a violent quake that sent large chunks of rocks into the air, as well as toppling many trees down. Needless to say, countless ninjas fell victim to such attack apart that teared the very foundations of the earth apart. Not even moving from his spot, Madara was contemplating the results of his devastating jutsu, his arms crossed, and a neutral expression on his face. Then, behind him, Zetsu emerged once again. An outstanding jutsu, boss, the white half praised. You were already able to decimate armies single-handedly before your rejuvenation, but you managed to take it to a whole new level. That Nagato brat wasn't able to form more than 1 meteor at once, the black half added. Yes, with you, catching the Jinchuriki is going to be piece of cake. Madara, however, appeared that he wasn't listening to his minion. His Rinnegan eyes narrowed at the sight in front of him, as he caught multiple figures still moving around. His lips curved into a slight grimace. It seems that this jutsu isn't as outstanding as you had dubbed it, Zetsu, given that there are still quite a few survivors out there, Madara noticed. Probably because they destroyed 2 of the meteors. Now, what would be the best way to deal with the survivors? Oh, I know. I can't believe I didn't try this before. Madara said, as he bit his finger and made 5 hand seals. Summoning Jutsu. Land of Fire, northeast of Madara's battlefield ARGH. Naruto screamed as he doubled over. He was rushing forward alongside Killer Bee and Fu when he was assaulted by an unspeakable pain. Naruto. Killer Bee said, concerned. He quickly appeared beside the blonde, placing a hand on his back. Naruto, what's wrong? What's causing pain in somebody so strong? Kurama, it feels, Naruto said in a whisper. It felt as if some force was trying to rip him away from me. Thankfully the seal kept him in place. This chakra, Kurama said with an angry groan. No. It can't be. He's dead. He should be dead. Kurama? What's wrong? Who are you talking about? Who should be dead? Chomei asked. Kurama uttered 2 words, Madara Uchiha. Back to the battlefield, Madara couldn't hide his disappointment when nothing came out of the burst of smoke produced by his jutsu. He was really seeking to unleash the 9 tails on those fools, now that Hashirama wasn't there to spoil his fun. The summoning failed. I should have expected it, given that the beast is sealed inside a Jinchuriki. Still, it was worth a try, Madara said, before his eyes looked at the horribly wounded survivors scattered around the battlefield. Oh well, if I can't use the 9 tails, guess a second round of meteors will have to do. And with a sadistic chuckle, Madara raised his hand to the skies once again. Carnage. That was the only word that could describe what had befell to the 2nd Division. Corpses of fallen ninja were scattered around the area, though some might be just unconscious and not really dead. The many rocks and fallen trees were splattered with blood. The few survivors called the names of their friends, hoping to find them alive, while others tried to futilely drag the bodies of those still alive but too wounded to walk, while pleading for a medic to come. Kaida. Hanabi. Hagane yelled, as he Frenchly looked around. Kaida. The white-haired Senju boy had survived thanks to Itachi and Sasuke, who used their Susanoo to shield him, as well as other lucky ninjas who happened to be around them, from the flying chunks of rocks and trees. Now, he was trying to find his sister and his other teammate, followed by Sasuke and Itachi. Hey, weren't you supposed to be a sensory ninja? Sasuke asked. Can't you just sense them? I'm trying, Hagane replied. But I feel kinda dizzy, and I can't sense very well. I expended too much chakra while helping you detonate that meteor. Itachi, a new voice said. Itachi turned around and saw Natsu running towards him. The former Hyuga branch house Kunoichi appeared to be good enough to walk on her own power, but her uniform was torn to shreds and had many bleeding wounds, one of them on her forehead. Natsu. Itachi called as he went to meet his not-quite-yet girlfriend. He noticed her Byakugan was active. Natsu, are you okay? I've been better, but I'll manage, the Hyuga replied. Thank goodness both you and Sasuke-kun are okay. We won't be okay if we stay here for long, Sasuke stated. Madara is way too strong for us. We must leave before he decides to give us the coup de grace. I won't leave without Kaida and Hanabi. Hagane interjected. I was looking for Hanabi-sama as well. Don't worry, I know where she is, Natsu said, pointing in a seemingly random direction. Hagane looked into said direction. At first he didn't see anything, before he looked something green. Something that appeared to be a dome made of wood. His eyes widened upon realizing what it was. That's a shelter made of wood release. Hagane cried, as he rushed towards it. Kaida. The 2 Uchihas and the Hyuga followed the Senju boy, and the 4 of them removed all the rocks under it as best as they could. Once there were no more rocks, Hagane forced 2 of the vines forming the dome apart, and entered inside. He sighed in relief upon seeing not only Kaida, but Hanabi as well, who was still unconscious. Rin was also there as well, her sage mode once again active, if the marks on her face were of any indication. "Brother," Kaida said, as she quickly rushed to hug her twin. "I'm so glad you're okay." "It was thanks to Sasuke and Itachi that I'm alive," Hagane said. "And I'm also glad that you and Hanabi are okay. Or all the okay somebody in a coma can be." "Don't worry, I've been checking on her," Rin reassured. "I'm positive she'll wake up in a few hours." "We don't have a few hours. Come on, we'll carry her as we get out of here," Sasuke urged. Suddenly, the earth started to rumble. "What the?" Kaida and Rin weren't the only ones who had the idea of creating a protective dome to shield themselves from all the flying debris caused by the 4 meteor impacts, as Maki also created a shield of cloth reinforced with fuinjutsu, big enough not just to protect her students, but a few other ninjas as well. Among them was Ran, the Kyumo kunoichi she had befriended during their first battle. Among them was also Kuratsuchi herself. While she managed to remain conscious, she could barely stand on her feet thanks to exhausting most of her chakra. "Sensei," Matsuri broke the silence, her voice quivering with fear. "I think we should leave before that Madara guy goes onto another rampage." "I agree with Matsuri-chan. That guy is way too strong for us." Yukata whimpered, as tears of terror rolled down her cheeks. "The battle was over the moment he used that insane attack to decimate our division," Maki agreed. "Still, we should make sure we aren't noticed so he doesn't come after us." "We'll have to carry the division commander with us and protect her," Maki said, looking at the weakened Kuratsuchi. "I'll go outside and check if it's safe to dash," Mikashi was about to say, as he was interrupted by another quake. "Okay, on 3, everyone push up," Guy instructed. "Ready? 1, 2, 3. While Guy, Lee, and Tenten had been able to dodge the gigantic collateral damage of the 4 meteor impacts, Niji wasn't so lucky, and during a brief moment, the brutal quakes made him lose his balance and fall to the ground just as a large rock landed on his leg, leaving him completely trapped. Fortunately, his teammates and sensei were quick to come to his aid once the initial devastation subsided. Guy, Lee, and Tenten all pushed up a large rock that was crushing Niji's leg. Once the wounded Hyuga was able to crawl out of it, they dropped the boulder back on the ground, which made a loud thud. "Niji, are you okay? Can you walk?" Lee anxiously asked. Niji tried to move his wounded leg, and winced in pain when he tried to do so. "I'm afraid not," Niji replied, before activating his Byakugan in order to examine his pained limb. "It doesn't appear to be broken, but I don't think I'll be able to put any weight on it." "In that case, we'll carry you," Lee said, as he helped Niji to get back on his feet, while allowing the Hyuga prodigy to rest his body on Lee's, with Lee placing one of Niji's arms around his shoulders. Tenten was quick to help Lee, and placed Niji's other arm around her shoulders as well. "Okay, time to get out of here," Tenten said, looking around, as if trying to find where Madara was hiding. With all the clouds of dust that had been raised, it was a bit hard to tell. "This is going to hurt a bit, Niji, but we need to move fast if we want to leave this place alive." "It's okay, I can WHOA," Niji said, as another quake almost made him fall to the ground again. What's going on?" Lee asked, as he frantically looked around. "Up in the sky. Look," Niji warned. The 4 members of Team Guy looked up, and much to their horror, saw 6 more gravity cores pulling earth, rocks, and dirt towards them, in order to form 6 more meteors. Paralyzed by horror, the 4 ninjas spent a few moments looking at the meteors forming and growing in size, with their eyes wide open and their mouths agape, trying to process what they could do. "Again he's going to do that again," Tenten said, almost in a whisper. Her face then became a mask of pure terror. "We need to get out of here as soon as possible." "Come on, you two." "No," Niji protested. "Leave me here. I can't walk, and I'm only a burden to you. If you leave me here, your chances of surviving will be all the greater." We aren't going to abandon a teammate, Lee angrily replied. How you dare to suggest such an horrible thing? Tell him we will never abandon anybody, Guy-sensei. Lee asked his mentor. However, Guy didn't reply. His eyes were still fixed on the meteors above them. Guy-sensei? While Guy heard his student, he didn't say anything. As he looked at the meteors, hundreds of thoughts raced his mind. Mostly related on how he could get his students from this hell safely. On one side, he agreed with Lee, he'd die before leaving one of his students behind. On the other hand, Niji had a point, carrying him would slow them down, and they needed to move as fast as possible in order to avoid Madara's catastrophic jutsu. Perhaps using the celestial gates, Guy wondered. The green-clad Jonin looked around, and saw his fellow division members in similar situations. Some of them tried to run away as fast as they could, others tried to take their wounded friends and comrades with them. And others had seemingly accepted their fates, and were simply hugging while crying into each other's shoulders. And then what? No, my students will never be safe in a world where Madara Uchiha still exists. I need to put an end to this right here and right now. Guy clenched his fist in determination as he took a decision. Guy-sensei. Lee called him once again. This time, Guy turned around, and gave his students his trademark smile. Lee, you have nothing to worry. No one will be left behind. I promise that the three of you will live to see another day. To see many other days. Lee smiled and nodded, his faith in that his sensei could do anything unwavered. Niji, however, wasn't as optimist. Guy-sensei, you can't make such a promise, Niji gravely said. That's where you are wrong, Niji, Guy said, before closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, his students could see that something inside him had changed. There was something about the way Guy was looking at them that made them feel uneasy. Very uneasy. He's looking at us as if he's never going to see us again, Ten thought, as a chill ran down her spine. Ten, Niji, Lee. I've been your teacher for almost 5 years, and I can say without any doubt that they have been the best years of my life. You've been the best students any teacher could have, and I feel grateful for being said teacher, Guy began. Guy-sensei? What are you dash? Lee began, but Guy interrupted him. Lee, despite your lack of ability to use ninjutsu or genjutsu, you still had the burning determination to become a ninja no matter what, even if you could only rely on taijutsu, Guy began. And look at yourself now. You're almost a jonin. And you managed to reach this level through nothing but sheer hard work. Konoha is lucky to have you among its ranks. Niji. For most of your life, you were also burdened by something you didn't ask nor desired. But you didn't let that define you, and you managed to show everybody the immense potential within you. While some things may be set in stone, there's no fate but the one we carve for ourselves. So keep working on creating the fate you want to see. Ten. Even if your initial dream of being like Tsunade didn't pan out, it did work in a different way. You were able to grow into one of the finest kunoichi this village had the luck to have. Just like how Tsunade was your inspiration, I'm sure plenty of little girls will be inspired by you to take the path of the ninja in order to be more like you. All in all, what I want to say is I can't feel more proud of being your sensei, and I love you. Lee was moved to tears by Guy's heartfelt speech, but on the inside was a little confused as to the why of it. Niji was averting his sensei's gaze, already guessing what was going to come next. Ten, meanwhile, knew the truth deep down but struggled to accept it. Jigai-sensei? Why are you saying this? She asked, almost on the verge of tears. Why are you talking as if you're bidding us farewell? Guy's expression hardened. He turned his back at them, and let out a heavy sigh. Because this is a goodbye, Ten, Guy said. Goodbye? Lee repeated. Why? Niji is right. We can't carry him with us and still move fast enough to avoid the meteors. But we can't abandon him either. We can't abandon any of our comrades, Guy said, as he spread his arms around for added emphasis. That's why I'm going to stay back and put an end to this. What? Guy-sensei, you're mad. You saw Madara's power. No matter how strong you are, what can you dash? Tenten began, but was cut off by Lee. The gate of death, Lee said in realization, as tears trickled down his cheeks. You plan to open it in order to match Madara's power. But the gate of death, once it's opened, the user will. Tenten choked on her words. Will it be enough? Niji asked. I don't know. But right now, it's our only option, Guy said. He looked up once again, and saw that the meteors were almost as big as the first time. Madara would drop them on their heads any moment. Come on, we can't waste any more time, you need to leave this place now. At first, they hesitated for a moment, before they nodded. Goodbye, Guy-sensei. I will never forget that you were the first person who saw potential in me when others only saw a failure, Lee said. We will make sure your sacrifice isn't in vain, Guy-sensei, Niji added. The world will forever remember your brave sacrifice, sensei. Tenten said. Guy smiled, and gave his students one last thumbs up. Lee and Tenten turned around, and leaped away while carrying Niji on their arms. Guy then directed his eyes up again. The meteors were now fully formed, and began their descent. While everybody else tried to run away, Guy began to run forward. So this is what you felt when you gave your life to save mine and my teammates, right, Dad? Guy thought, smiling at the memory. I always wanted to be a ninja you'd be proud of. Dad, you'll tell me now if I did reach said goal. Gate of death open. Chakra flowed unimpeded through Guy's entire body as all the dams in his chakra network were wide open. A blue aura flared around his body, quickly turning fire red, while his skin also turned dark red in color, and his eyes became entirely white, glowing with an eerie light. His body emitted so much heat, the ground around the Konoha Jonin started to burn. Guy set his sights on his first target, a meteor that was the closest to the ground. The empowered Konoha ninja leaped towards it, breaking the ground he was standing on with the sheer strength he now possessed, and leaving a patch of scorched earth. In less than 2 seconds, Guy reached the meteor, and punched it with all his might. The meteor shattered and broke into thousands of tiny pebbles as if it was made of fragile sandstone. 1 down. 5 more to go. Guy thought, as he tried to locate the meteor second closest to the ground. That one. Once again, Guy smashed into the meteor like a red missile, blowing it up to tiny rock chunks with a demolishing kick. The third one soon fell to Guy's might. Halfway done. Come on, just a little more. Guy told himself. I have enough power to destroy all of them and then take on Madara. At first, Madara was watching in amusement how those ants that pretended to be ninjas were about to be crushed under the weight of his godly power. He could see and hear their terror and desperation, and he reveled on them. While Madara was somebody who preferred fighting challenging opponents rather than crush weak ones, he did take pleasure in making unworthy opponents suffer and scream as much as possible. After all, there were few things that disgusted Madara more than weakness. Then, that red missile happened. Appearing out of nowhere, and destroying one of his meteors like it was nothing, then another. And another. Madara was too stumped watched how this unknown element nullified one of his strongest new jutsu so casually, to the point that he didn't even attempt to stop it. Though, after regaining his bearing, he decided not to. After all, he was lamenting how there was nobody among this rabble able to give him a good fight, so this was a welcome surprise. Once this unknown but immensely powerful warrior was done destroying all of Madara's meteors, it leaped towards the Uchiha himself, landing on the ground with a thundering boom. The former Uchiha clan head could feel the sheer power this new enemy was radiating. Strangely enough, behind the terrifying appearance granted by the fiery aura that surrounded him, the man was oddly familiar to Madara. Wait a minute, Madara said, as he narrowed his eyes. You're that green-clad fool with the ridiculous hairstyle that Madara tried to slash Guy with the Susanoo sword, but Guy's reaction times were too fast and was able to easily avoid it. The punch left a crack on Madara Susanu's chest as it was forced backwards. Alright, not bad, but how Madara was interrupted when his Susanoo was smashed with an overwhelming force from behind, cracking it as well. Then another hit from the sides. Then the opposite side. Then the flank. Then the opposite flank. All what Madara saw was a red blur moving around his Susanoo, who was being thrown around like a gigantic ragdoll. I can't follow his movements, he's too fast, Madara said, his eyes quickly darting around in order to locate his evasive opponent. His Susanoo was again victim of a powerful slam coming from the flank. But his attacks do have a pattern, meaning that his next hit will come from there. The Susanoo quickly turned around and swung its sword towards the incoming guy. This time, the sword hit its mark, its flat side slamming against the Konoha ninja's body, breaking Guy's momentum and sending him crashing back into the ground. Madara took advantage of the pause to restore the cracks in his Susanoo, while also taking it to its perfect form. You certainly gave me quite the beating, both to my body and to this Susanoo, with that technique of yours, Madara said, as his perfect Susanoo stomped head towards Guy, who jumped back to his feet. But if that's the best you can do, then I'm afraid to tell you that your sacrifice, while noble, will be a pointless one. Even if I don't defeat you, my sacrifice wasn't pointless, since I managed to stop that jutsu of yours from killing the rest of my division, and I made you focus on me, giving the others a chance to escape, Guy said, as he took a weird battle stance, one that involved him being on all fours. And I still have one hidden ace in the whole one that will take you down for good. Matter smirked. Oh. Alright. Show it to me then. So far, no one but Hashirama has been able to make a dent on this Susanoo. But perhaps you may be an exception. That moment, Guy's fiery aura flared once again, and it grew into a roaring inferno. Guy's clothes started to burn down, as volcanic-like glowing red veins started to spread around his body. His eyes started to burn with an orange light, as if they were two burning coals. The earth started to shake as a patch of burned ground spread around Guy's position. Then, Guy's red aura started to stabilize and slowly took the shape of a fiery dragon. The Konoha Jonin shot forward, leaving a trail of burning earth with each step, before leaping at Madara's Susanoo, the dragon roaring with him. Madara's Susanoo quickly generated a sword of chakra on each hand, and delivered a cross-shaped slash at Guy, who made no hint to avoid the attack. Now burn among my flames of youth, and turn to ashes, Madara, Guy hollered, as he readied his body to deliver a flying kick. Night Guy. The Susanoo swords found their target, but Guy plowed through them as if they were made of cheap wood. It also shattered the Susanoo's armor as if it was made of weak glass. Guy's foot connected with Madara's chest, violently pushing him out of his giant chakra construct, as the two of them continued flying high into the sky. This man. Just what is he? Madara asked, as he was forced to vomit blood from the internal damage Guy's brutal kick had caused. The volcanic veins around Guy's body started to burn with greater intensity, as his whole body glowed with a fierce red light. And as Guy expended the last of his chakra, his body exploded in a red blast, instantly burning to ash. The explosion sent Madara flying at least a kilometer away, before he painfully landed onto the hard ground. Back on the ground, Niji was being carried by Lee and Tenten, while the three of them, as well as many other survivors, tried to get away from the battlefield as fast as possible. While Lee and Tenten didn't dare to look back, Niji was monitoring the battle through his Byakugan. Then, the Hyuga prodigy winced as a flash of chakra blinded him for a few seconds. That moment, they heard the explosion. And the three young Konoha ninjas finally knew that was the moment their beloved sensei had ceased to exist. Land of Fire, a couple kilometers to the west of the battle between the 2nd Division and Madara Uchiha, Arg damn madman, Madara was on the ground, in a puddle of his own blood, grunting in pain, unable to move. Or what was left of him. Guy's final attack had blown away the Uchiha's entire lower half, as well as a chunk of his torso, leaving only his mangled and battered upper body, his right arm, and his head. Naturally, a normal man wouldn't have been able to withstand such brutal dismemberment, but thanks to the healing factor he got from Hashirama's DNA, which was even greater than the original, he managed to cling to life. But you failed, ha ha ha, you failed, he gloated, before he was interrupted by a violent coughing fit. You died for nothing. Madara was feeling lightheaded, probably due to all the blood he had lost. Thankfully, all his wounds were now closing, preventing further blood loss. Though even if his regeneration was already kicking in, it would take quite a lot of time to regrow all the body parts he had lost, and even more to regain his former strength. Guy may have failed to kill the ghost of the Uchiha, but he made sure he would be out of commission for quite some time. At that moment, Zetsu emerged from the ground just beside his fallen master. "Oh boy, this isn't good," the white half said in horror. "Did you reach to that conclusion on your own?" the black half snarked, before taking a look at Madara. "Though, I didn't think there was anybody to leave the boss so fucked up. Thank goodness that guy died during the battle. Obito-sama is going to be very mad when he finds out," the white half added. "Very, very mad. It can't be helped. Come on, let's take him back to the lair so we can treat him," the black half suggested. The plant creature then grabbed the barely conscious Madara, and both of them sunk into the ground until they disappeared completely. Unnamed territory between the land of waterfalls and the land of sound, nighttime Jiraiya and Tsunade were sitting in silence in front of a small campfire. It might appear that they had their eyes fixed into the fire, but in truth they weren't looking at anything in particular. They had just finished having some light dinner, even if neither of them had any appetite. They needed a full stomach if they hoped to have enough energy to defeat Orochimaru. The reason behind their gloomy mood was Naruto's letter. While they were making their way towards Orochimaru's hideout, Kosuke the messenger toad appeared in front of Jiraiya with a scroll that Naruto had written for him. Jiraiya felt his heart skip a beat upon hearing that, given that if Naruto did such a thing then an emergency must have happened. And unfortunately, he was right. The letter not only revealed that Akatsuki had learned of the location of the Turtle Island, but launched an attack in order to capture the Jinchuriki. Fortunately, Naruto, Fu and Killer Bee managed to escape, but several Konoha ninjas lost their lives, including Choza Akimichi, Tenzo, and their sensei Hiruzen Sarutobi. "I can't believe Sensei's dead," Jiraiya began, sounding downcast. "I sent him to the island to babysit Naruto because I thought it was a safe place away from the front lines, yet," Tsunade placed a hand on his forearm. "Don't blame yourself. Remember, it was me who came up with that idea." "But it was me who agreed to it," Jiraiya replied, placing his own hand on top of Tsunade's. "I could have just told that old fool to go back to his house and let us do the fighting, but no, I had to take the easy way and make him part of the war," Jiraiya said, letting out a tired sigh. "Sensei was always a warrior at heart," Tsunade said. "He was born during the last years of the Warring States period, and became a ninja during Konoha's most tumultuous years. Not to mention that he's a veteran of all three wars. He wasn't like you or me, who were born in periods of peace and only went through our first war when we were adults. That's why I wanted him to stay in the village to begin with," Jiraiya replied. "That man has done more than enough. He deserved to sit this one out. And Tenzo-man, Kaida, and Hagane are going to be devastated when they learn that their Jonin sensei is dead as well," Tsunade said, shaking her head. "To think that I was this close to send the twins with Naruto to the island for protection," Jiraiya reflected. Tsunade looked at him, perplexed. "You what?" "I was worried about them, and I told them that I wanted them to be with Naruto, to help and support him in his quest to master the power of the Nine Tails," Jiraiya said, before chuckling a little. "Of course, they saw through my lie instantly. Even Kaida. They realized of my intentions, and pointed out that just because they were my kids, I couldn't give them a special treatment. As their mother, would have agreed with you, though," Tsunade said, leaning his head back. "But Kami knows that had I been the one in their place, would have protested even louder." The two fell again into a silence, with only the crackle of the flames in front of them making any noise. Some leader I am, Jiraiya dejectedly said. Tsunade looked at him with concern in her eyes. Jiraiya, why are you saying that? You've been doing a great job so far, both as Hokage and Supreme Leader of the Alliance. I appreciate your support, Haim, but we both know you're only saying that because you're my wife, Jiraiya replied with a sad smile. This war happened to begin with because I foolishly let Akatsuki get their hands on one of the Rinnegan because I had the brilliant idea of using them as a bait to lure Danzo out. The war would have happened anyway, Tsunade countered. And nobody would have guessed that Danzo was under Obito's mind control. I've also sent Shikaku Nara to his death by allowing him to go to the battlefield because Inoichi was spotted, Jiraiya continued. Shikaku was our best strategist, and now we lost a critical member of our intelligence division. Shikaku was a Jonin. You had reasons to trust he could stay alive in the battlefield, Tsunade rebutted. Jiraiya was going to say something, but closed his mouth, chuckled, and looked at his wife. You're going to find a justification for every one of my failings, aren't you? You can bet I am, Tsunade said with a confident smirk. However, said smirk disappeared quickly, replaced by a scowl and a solemn expression. Jiraiya, we're now at the most critical part of the war. Our son and the other two Jinchuriki are out there in the open, vulnerable, and Akatsuki won't resist the temptation of catching them. If I were the enemy, I'd send whatever forces left into one final offensive in order to act as a distraction while sending somebody capable of capturing the Jinchuriki. Orochimaru had the reanimations of my grandparents all this time, yet he kept them under wraps until Naruto and the others were no longer protected, Tsunade pointed out. I'm sure that bastard still has more heavyweights in reserve, and he will send all of them soon. We're now going to face Orochimaru. If we can beat him, we'll be able to undo the impure world resurrection, depriving the enemy of their strongest asset. And if we're to do that, I can't have you doubting yourself when we're so close to end this. Jiraiya was left a little taken aback upon hearing that light reprimand. After regarding his bearings, though, he smiled again. Guess you're right. I'll have time to mop over my failings as a leader once we're done with this shit. Tsunade rolled her eyes, but smiled good-naturedly. Honestly, Jiraiya, drop it. You're being annoying. No one expects you to do a perfect job. In fact, I believe that out of all the potential candidates, you were the best, both to be Hokage and to be the Supreme Commander of the Alliance. And I'm not saying this just because I'm your wife. Jiraiya held his hands defensively. Hey, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. I don't think I can get anything out of it except a headache. Good, Tsunade said, and nodded. Again, another moment of silence. Aside from the fire, they could hear a couple owls hooting. So do you think we can take on the bastard? Jiraiya asked. I mean, I know you have the Rinnegan, but will it be enough? By this point, Orochimaru must have integrated quite a few bloodline limits into himself as well. Fighting a man with that many abilities, it's going to be tricky. Not to mention that we can't even kill him, Tsunade added. Or else we won't be able to undo the jutsu and destroy all the reanimations at once. Do you really think that we can convince him to undo the jutsu? Jiraiya asked, skeptical. Orochimaru is too far gone. He will fight us to death, either his or ours, and the guy loves nothing but himself, meaning we can't use anything or anyone else as leverage against him. I know it won't destroy all the reanimations at once, but we already have you and the Hyuga sisters to destroy them permanently. Perhaps we could trick him, Tsunade suggested. Put him under a genjutsu or something. I'm not that good with genjutsu, and neither are you. Plus, with that Sharingan of his, I doubt he wouldn't be able to easily break it, Jiraiya countered. Tsunade was starting to become frustrated. Her nose scrunched up as she began to think what else they could do. Give it up, Haim. I'm not looking up to it, but we'll have to kill the bastard, Jiraiya said, hoping to make his wife reconsider. Suddenly, an idea dawned upon Tsunade's mind. The scowl in her face disappeared, replaced by a smile of realization. Of course. Yes, we'll have to kill him, Tsunade said. That doesn't mean we can't undo the jutsu ourselves after that. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, a little confused. What are you thinking? Tsunade smiled confidently. I just had an idea of how we can force Orochimaru to undo the jutsu. This is the plan, Mountain Graveyard, again. Your aberrations failed. Again, Obito seethed, as he angrily paced around the cavern that they were used as an improvised command center. The three Jinchuriki were out in the open, with no support and no place to hide, ripe for being caught. And you let them escape. Orochimaru was somehow able to keep a calm facade as he endured Obito's tirade, the last of many. He had to admit that the Uchiha had a point, his reanimations weren't as effective as they should have been. They were immortal, indestructible ninjas with unlimited amount of chakra, that were forced to obey the fallen Sanin's order to the letter. On paper, that would make them the perfect soldiers, but the Alliance was taking them on with surprising ease. The answer would be that the jutsu has a weakness that Orochimaru hadn't anticipated. The answer would be, what weakness? Even discounting Tsunade and the Hyuga girls with the truth-seeking balls, many of my reanimations have been defeated rather quickly, Orochimaru reflected. Seeing that they were unable to kill them, the enemy decided to seal them instead. Maybe the zombies still exist, but if they can't fight, that's irrelevant. You had the reanimation of Hashirama Senju as your slave, and you're telling me that wasn't enough to capture three Jinchuriki? Obito asked, incredulous, as he threw his arms into the air. All you have to do is capture them, and then the war would have been won. Obito's right. I thought that between Hashirama and Mito, they would be able to subdue the three Jinchuriki. Hashirama is the most powerful ninja that ever lived, and he and his wife had the perfect skill set to counter a Jinchuriki, yet the combined power of the three Jinchuriki turned out to be greater. How can that be possible? It seems that I made miscalculation while gauging the power of the targets, Orochimaru admitted, yet his confident demeanor didn't change in the slightest. I don't know what they've been doing on that island, but the increase in power of the Jinchuriki of the Nine and the Seven Tails has been meteoric, to say the least. Given that it was so easy to make them abandon that giant turtle, it seemed that they didn't have enough power to match Mito, much less Hashirama. Didn't somebody tell you that you have an awful habit of underestimating your opponents? Obito sneered, as he stomped towards him. You think yourself you're so clever, so cunning, so strong, and then you let yourself be defeated by those same enemies you deemed as your inferiors. We haven't lost yet, Orochimaru said. The Jinchuriki are still out there, in the open. I still have plenty of strong reanimations that can take them on. This time, I'll overwhelm them with numbers instead of relying on a single, powerful puppet. Obito was going to reply, when Zetsu emerged between the two of them. Even if the dual being was trying to hide it, it was obvious that he was bringing even more bad news. He let out a tired sigh, and rolled his eyes. What now? You better come with me, boss, the black half said, as he eyed Orochimaru, while extending his arm at Obito. This is something you need to see. Wordlessly, Obito grabbed Zetsu's hand, and let the plant creature pull him into the ground through his odd way of teleportation, leaving Orochimaru alone in the cavern. Forests of the Land of Fire, nighttime after their excruciating fight with Hashirama Senju and Mito Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki trio of Naruto, Fu and Killer Bee wanted to do nothing but rest. Even if they knew that people were counting on them, they wouldn't be of much help if they arrived on the battlefield completely exhausted. Of course, there was the problem of finding a place to hide in order to escape from Akatsuki's ever-vigilant gaze. Fortunately, the three Jinchuriki came up with a rather ingenious idea. After finding a good cluster of trees that would help cover their position, Fu used her chakra threads in order to create a large hollow cocoon that could be used as an improvised shelter. Naruto and Killer Bee then created and applied as many seals of protection, camouflage, and privacy as possible in order to make it impossible to find. That would mean that their allies wouldn't be able to find them either, but it wasn't a risk they could afford to take. Now, the three of them were sitting around a fire, thankfully, The makeshift shelter had a hole at the top to let the smoke out, quietly enjoying some rest and dinner. Unfortunately for them, the only food they had with them right now was some instant ramen Naruto had with him inside ceiling scrolls. Not that they were complaining, it saved them from hunting, and they were hungry enough to eat pretty much anything. They dined in silence. That's it, until, from a burst of smoke, a small frog appeared before Naruto. The blonde quickly slurped the noodles they were in his mouth, almost choking on them. However, just before Naruto could greet the messenger toad, Fu's hand shot towards the newcomer and caught him. Yay, a frog! Fu cheered. We can dine frog's legs with the ramen. Hey, what the hell are you saying? First, I'm a toad, not a frog. Second, what's that talk about eating me? The toad complained, as he broke free from Fu's grasp. A toad? Like the ones Naruto summons? Fu asked, scratching her head. But those are much bigger, we toads come in every size and shape, the toad protested, before he turned at Naruto. Hey there, Naruto. I sent your message to your pops as you asked me. Kosuka. So great to see you back. Naruto cheered, a little louder than he was hoping. So, did you tell my dad about what happened? Will he do something about us? Yeah, I did, but, Kosuka began, as he rubbed the back of his head, while averting Naruto's gaze. But what? Naruto asked. Jiraiya wasn't where you said he would be. He wasn't at the Ninja Alliance HQ, Kosuka revealed, much to the three humans' surprise. He and Tsunade were in a forest, I think far to the north. What? Naruto asked, looking stumped. What the hell were they doing there? From what Jiraiya told me, they've located Orochimaru's hideout, and he and Tsunade are going to face him, Kosuka told him. Let's hope they put that snake monster down. Hey, that's good, right? Fu asked, looking back and forth between Naruto and Killer Bee, who didn't appear to be any happier. Orochimaru's the one behind the reanimations, so if they beat him, the enemy will lose its strongest minions. Killer Bee looked back at her, and shook his head. If the big boss is out, there will be no help. And the bad guys are going to keep making us yelp. Pretty much, Naruto agreed. Oh, Kosuka lamely said, looking down. Hey, do you want us to take you to Mount Myaboku? You will be safe there. Naruto shook his head. I'm not going to abandon Killer Bee and Fu. Not to mention all the people out there fighting and dying for us. They've already done enough, they need our help. You sure? Kosuka asked. It could be arranged for your companions to be transported there as well, even if it may take a little time, I'm sure, Naruto said, nodding. Though, don't worry, I won't do anything stupid. I'll ask to be reverse summoned if the situation gets ugly, but I plan to use that as a last resort. Very well then. You're strong, and your pals also seem to be just as tough, so I trust you'll be good, Kosuka replied with a nod. I'll tell the others to get ready to assist you as well as Jiraiya. Thanks, I'll appreciate that, Naruto replied. And if you need to send another message to your pop, don't hesitate to summon me, Kosuka said with a smile. Anyway, I'll be taking my leave now. Bye. And Kosuka disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving the three Jinchuriki once again with nobody but each other. They continued eating in silence until all three of them finished their instant ramen. When they did, Fu decided to strike up a conversation. Man, that Hashirama dude was crazy strong, she said, as she leaned against the wall of the shelter cocoon, while placing her hands behind her neck. I hope they don't make us fight a reanimation stronger than that one. I find that unlikely. Hashirama is the strongest ninja who ever lived in recorded history, Naruto mentioned. Orochimaru can't have somebody stronger because such person doesn't exist. I think you're forgetting about certain someone. That tree man has nothing on the great Killer Bee, son, Killer Bee boasted. And he was lucky my big bro wasn't here, Between the two of us we wouldn't taken more than 5 seconds to make him disappear. Naruto rolled his eyes, but chuckled at his fellow Jinchuriki's rap, while Fu giggled. Well, maybe not somebody stronger, but I can think in somebody just as strong as Hashirama, Kurama interjected. Madara Uchiha. Naruto frowned upon hearing the name, and angrily crossed his arms. Remember the pain he felt when the Nine Tails was almost ripped out of his body by a summoning jutsu. Are you sure it was him? Because if Orochimaru got a piece of his DNA then, while nobody knows where the second Hokage buried Madara, Orochimaru has proved to be crafty and resourceful, so I wouldn't put past that man to get his hands on a DNA sample of Madara, Kurama said. Well, regardless of how strong that Madara is, if we beat Hashirama, we can beat him in the case we have to fight him again, right? Fu asked, sounding like she needed to be reassured of that. Of course. Madara was never able to beat Hashirama, something you guys did do, so you shouldn't worry too much, Chomei helpfully encouraged. Then again, the fight against Hashirama was more narrow than I would have liked, so I don't look forward any similar fight, Gyuki tiredly said. And from what I heard, Madara was crazy strong too. There was also our old man and his brother, but I find very unlikely for Orochimaru to get DNA from two people who died almost a millennium ago, Kurama added. I agree with numbers 9 and 7, if more reanimations come we'll just launch them above heaven. Killer Bee rapped. All we have to do is help the Alliance fight and survive, while your mom and pop make sure that Orochimaru bastard doesn't stay alive. Yeah, that's the plan, Naruto confirmed. By the way, number 9, can you check the position of our friends? Just to make sure we don't take any wrong ends, Killer Bee asked. Sure, Naruto said, as he sat with his legs crossed, closed his eyes, and stayed still as he began to gather nature energy. Orange marks started to appear around his eyes as Sage Mode manifested, granting him far-sensing abilities. The more nature energy he absorbed, the further he could expand his senses. Alright, I have them. Yeah, you were right, they changed position and hey, wait a second, something wrong, number 9? It seems like there's something that's not fine, Killer Bee inquired. The chakra concentration that I felt before is nowhere near as big as this one, Naruto said, worry slipping in his voice. I'm sensing quite a few familiar chakra signatures, like that of Hagane, Kaida, Hanabi, Sasuke, Itachi, Niji, Lee, and Tenten, but there are a lot of people missing. Perhaps there was a battle while we were fighting Hashirama? Fu suggested. No, that can't be right. The Alliance has been fighting for weeks against Akatsuki, and while they had casualties, they weren't nothing too worrisome. There's no way they could have lost more than half their ninjas in a single battle. Perhaps you aren't sensing them right, Fu said, as she also sat in the lotus position and stayed still in order to activate Sage Mode. After a few minutes, she managed to expand her sensing range in order to reach Kuratsuchi's division. Wait, you're right, there are far fewer people than the last time I sensed them. See? I told you. Naruto worriedly said. Also their chakra seems to be pretty weak, Naruto, Fu called him. You said you sensed Niji, Lee, and Tenten, and so do I. But I can't sense their sensei. Naruto realized then that he hadn't sensed Gai sensei either, and much to his horror, he realized he could no longer find his presence. Beads of cold sweat started to trickle down his body. What the hell happened there, and what kind of enemy could have killed such a powerful ninja like Gai sensei? Kurama didn't say anything, but he already imagined the answer. Undisclosed location. Obito looked at Madara's unconscious form, partially submerged under a sap-like green substance inside a hole that served as a makeshift bathtub. He could see that his breath was shallow, but steady. Obito didn't know what was that substance, but the Zetsu told him it was a bomb made from Hashirama's cells that had regenerative properties and would restore Madara to full health in no time. He was unable to repress yet another sigh of exasperation. Zetsu stood behind the younger Uchiha, fidgeting uncomfortably. And when did he get out of the cocoon? Obito asked, his eyes still trained on Madara. A few hours ago, boss, the wild half replied. Did he know about the war? Abito asked, almost hissing with anger. Did he know what we were doing? Yes, sir. We told him everything that happened since he entered the cocoon, until now, the white half confirmed. And instead of seeking me, or going to hunt the Jinchuriki, he goes to pick a fight with a random division of the Ninja Alliance? Abito asked again. Despite his apparent calm tone, Zetsu could sense he was so angry, he wouldn't be surprised if steam came out of his ears. He said he wanted to test his new powers and abilities before continuing with the plan, and thought a large gathering of enemy ninjas would be an ideal target, the black half supplied. Not so ideal, given how badly he ended, Abito bitterly thought. And who the hell was able to put Madara Uchiha of all people in such a sorry state? From what we know, a Konoha ninja named Madogai, the white half replied. Madogai? Abito repeated, this time turned around to glare at the plant-like, dual being. That idiot with the ridiculous haircut? Madogai did this. He used some kind of forbidden jutsu that granted him an immense power, the black half explained. Something called the Celestial Gates or something like that. Abito felt his anger subside a little. He knew about the 8 gates. They were great sources of power, but came at an equally great cost. He could imagine that if Guy opened all 8 gates, he'd had a power to match Madara's. I presume Guy is dead then? Abito asked. Very much, yes. His body was burned to ashes by the very power he was wielding, the black half said. At the very least we won't have to deal with that again, Abito said. Zetsu nodded but didn't reply, while Abito turned back, and went to watch the wounded Madara once again, followed by an uncomfortably long moment of silence. Boss, the white half began. What are we going to do? Deploy all our remaining troops on as many fronts as possible. Tell Orochimaru to send whatever reanimations he still has left to those very fronts as well, Abito ordered. The goal of this attack is to keep the Alliance occupied while we catch the Jinchuriki. I see, the black half said. And what is the plan for that, boss? I'm tired of delegating. I'm going to catch those stubborn Jinchuriki myself, Abito declared. It's time to end this farce of a war. 2nd Division Base Camp, nighttime, resolute. I need to appear resolute, Kuratsuchi thought, fighting back the tears. The troops can't see you crying like a baby. They're looking up to you to guide them, and you can't afford to look weak. The 2nd Division, or what was left of it, was resting inside their new base, an underground cavern that had been dug by the Earth Release users, the young Tsuchikage included. After Madara's brutal attack, the survivors wanted something not in the open. The few seal masters that had survived had placed privacy and camouflage seals around the area in order to mislead enemy scouts. There were no bonfires due to the little ventilation of the man-made caves, with a few torches and small campfires scattered around the area providing some light and heat. Unlike the aftermath of their previous battles, there was no noise, other than the small murmur of a few conversations here and there. Did Akatsuki launch a second attack after that one? For some reason, we were unable to determine the size of the enemy force from our end. Kuratsuchi gulped, as she prepared for what she was going to say. It was one enemy, Grandpa. One that claimed to be Madara Uchiha. There was a moment of silence, before Inoki spoke again. Of course. Given that we knew Orochimaru had DNA samples of Hashirama Senju, it would be wishful thinking to think he didn't have those of Madara as well, Inoki said in resignation. Even then, Madara alone couldn't dash. Let me finish first, Grandpa, Kuratsuchi cut him. First of all, it wasn't a reanimation. It was Madara Uchiha in the flesh. What? Inoki yelled. But that can't be right, girl, Chiyo's voice interceded. If Madara Uchiha was still alive to this day, he'd be more than a century old. No human being has ever lived that long. Well, he didn't look like a reanimation, given the lack of cracked skin and black eyes, Kuratsuchi said. Then again, if he was a reanimation or not, it's irrelevant. What matters the most is his power. Grandpa, you fought Madara Uchiha in the past, right? Did he have wood release, or the Rinnegan? Of course not. He had that blasted Mangekyo Sharingan, Anoki began, before catching on his granddaughter's implication. Wait, are you telling me the Madara you fought had such bloodline limits? Yes. In fact, I'd better start from the beginning so you can understand what we went through. You see, Kuratsuchi began to explain the battle against Madara. How he carved a path of corpses with taijutsu alone, before fighting the division's most powerful ninjas, only to reveal that he was toying with them and using them to test his powers, before finally deciding to finish them off with not one but several Chibaku Tensei at once. According to the information gathered by the Uchiha brothers during their ill-fated battle against their elder clansmen, Madara had undergone the same rejuvenation process Rin Noara had gone through, gaining wood release as well as a potent healing factor. And on top of that, by mixing his Uchiha genes with Hashirama's Senju cells, he had managed to evolve his Sharingan to Rinnegan, effectively becoming the most powerful ninja who ever lived. There's something I don't understand, Tsuchikage-sama, Ao intervened. If Madara Uchiha is so immensely powerful, how did you manage to defeat him? A Konoha ninja, Mado Gai, used a forbidden technique known as the 8 Celestial Gates, which granted him a massive power boost, big enough to match Madara, but at the cost of his life, Kuratsuchi explained. However, despite managing to keep Madara at bay long enough for us to escape, and delivering a devastating final blow, we were unable to confirm if Madara is truly dead nor not. Yes, I know that technique, O said. Another Konoha ninja, Mado Dai, also used that very same technique to fight all of our 7 swordsmen at once, and kill 4 of them, also at the cost of his life. It's kind of poetic that his son went down the same way Dai did, isn't it? Chiyo sadly reflected. Yes. The casualties my division suffered at Madara's hands have been catastrophic, Kuratsuchi said, unable to repress a few tears at the thought of her allowing so many of her troops dying. If it wasn't for Gai's sacrifice, that monster would have wiped out my division completely. So we better prepare for Madara's eventual return, then, Anoki said, dreading the thought of facing that man again, especially now that his powers had increased so dramatically. Perhaps our most powerful ninjas working together can take him down. Will that be enough? Kuratsuchi asked, unsure. There was a moment of silence before Anoki gave his answer. I don't know, but we'll have to try, the old man said. As if we didn't have enough troubles with Kumo's secret island being attacked, they attacked the secret island. Kuratsuchi asked, alarmed. When? How? Did they capture any of the dash? A message reached us a few hours ago. We kept no communication between the island and the rest of our forces as not to give Akatsuki any lead to its location, but even then it wasn't enough, Anoki said. The Raikage said he had his mind scanned by a Yamanaka reanimation. It was only a matter of time that they found that island, Chiyo intervened. Fortunately, word is that, despite leaving several casualties, Akatsuki was unable to capture the Jinchuriki, and they escaped into the mainland. But that means that the Jinchuriki are alone and unprotected, Kuratsuchi said. She then looked around. I'd ask where they are, but my division is no shape to conduct an extensive search operation. We weren't expecting you to, child, Anoki replied. Now if that's all, I suggest you to take some rest. We'll send you reinforcements and supplies as soon as we can. I will. Thanks, Gramps. As said before, the atmosphere among what was left of the 2nd Division was gloom. Not only because of the crushing defeat at Madara's hands, not just because the sheer amount of casualties, but also because said casualties left friends and loved ones behind. And among those many unfortunate souls was a trio of Konoha ninjas who had just lost their Jonin sensei in the battle against Madara. Lee and Tenten broke down almost immediately after the underground shelter was set, and spent most of the time crying their eyes out. Even if Niji also shed a few tears, she managed to keep his composure. Perhaps because he wasn't used to display his emotions so openly, perhaps because, as the new leader of the close combat squad. I can't believe that Guy-sensei is gone, Tenten said, not daring to say the word she meant to say. He was so strong I never thought there was somebody capable of pushing Guy-sensei into sacrificing like that for us, Lee cried. This is a war. People die. Shikamaru lost his dad not that long ago, Tenten said, still crying a little. But you never think it's going to be somebody close to you, no. You never do, Niji interceded. Until you lose somebody, and realize how close death is to us. Especially when you're a ninja. You're talking about the Uchiha insurrection, right? Lee asked. I know your clan was hit really hard during that tragic night. Yes. However, it happened almost a decade ago, and I didn't lose any of my close relatives, so I was among the lucky ones, Niji explained. But even if I didn't know most of them, seeing so many of my clansmen die was a harrowing experience. I wasn't even out of the academy, yet that day taught me what it means to be a ninja, to see your friends and loved ones die at any moment. Really? So whenever we go to a mission, do you expect any of us to die? Tenten asked. I prefer to look at it from a different perspective. What can I do to make sure all of us go home alive? Niji rhetorically asked. And I can assume that Guy-sensei thought that way. That's why he sacrificed himself, so we could have another chance to fight. Another chance to live. And we'll use this chance to avenge Guy-sensei. Tenten began. No. That, Lee interrupted. That's not something Guy-sensei would have wanted. Guy-sensei considered revenge to be mostly unyouthful. Not that we can do anything against somebody who wields such a monstrous power, Niji added. If we want to honor Guy-sensei's sacrifice, the best thing we can do is to continue doing what we've been doing so far, keep fighting against the enemy to the best of our ability, and help end this war as best as we can. Tenten wanted to protest. To shout, to yell, about how Guy's death was an injustice that needed to be punished. But as much as her emotional side wanted her to do that, her rational side couldn't help but agree with everything Niji was saying. Madara was way out of their league, and if he died, it wouldn't be by their hand. So Tenten didn't say anything. Neither did Lee nor Niji. The group remained silent for the next few minutes, slowly absorbing the Hyuga prodigy's words. So given that Guy-sensei is gone, Lee spoke, breaking the silence. He looked at Niji. That makes you the leader of our squad, given that you're the one of the greater rank. I guess so. But that's irrelevant now, since we're part of a much larger division, Niji pointed out, as he looked down. Then, he raised his eyes, and locked them onto his two teammates. But like Guy-sensei did before, as the commanding officer of this squad, I'll do my best to keep you two alive. And we will do our best to make sure you won't have to sacrifice yourself like Guy-sensei did, Tenten said energically, as she clenched her hand into a fist. This squad won't lose any more members. Guy-sensei's sacrifice won't be in vain. Niji just crossed his arms and nodded, while Lee threw a fist in Tenten's direction, as a way to show his agreement. They would make it to the end of this war alive. They would make their sensei proud. Not far away from there, Sasuke was sitting alone at the foot of another small campfire. He was shivering a little, as the underground cavern was cold, and the campfire didn't provide much heat, but it was better than nothing. He heard the steps of somebody who was walking towards him. He didn't turn his head around since he knew who he was. Hey, Itachi said, as he sat in front of him. You okay, brother? Yeah. A little exhausted, but I'll live, Sasuke tiredly replied. So how is Natsu doing? She's okay. The medics have already healed all her wounds. Nothing too serious. Thankfully, Itachi said, breathing out. And how are you doing? Sasuke asked. Itachi visibly deflated. His eyes looked downwards, to the hard stone floor. Physically, I'm okay. I'll need a day or two of rest before I'm at my best, so let's hope we get a little reprieve before we're called into the action again. You said physically, Sasuke pointed out. And mentally? Mentally not so good, Itachi honestly replied. He looked at Sasuke with tired eyes. I keep replaying the battle in my mind, wondering what we could have done differently in order to beat Madara, but nothing comes to mind. The gap between us is too big. Sasuke raised an eyebrow and scowled at his older brother. You don't seriously think it was your responsibility alone to end that maniac, do you? If it wasn't mine, then whom? Itachi replied. You aren't the only ninja in this division, Itachi. Nor the only one with a powerful bloodline limit. Many of them tried their luck against Madara, and all of them failed, Sasuke pointed out. True. Guess I'm not that used to failing, Itachi admitted. Really? I know you're strong, but even you must fail sometimes, Sasuke pointed out. Less than the average ninja. With the missions I usually get, failure isn't something that I can afford, Itachi said. And when I fail, mass death follows. Sasuke chuckled humorlessly. Aren't you being a little overdramatic there? Do I need to remind you of the Uchiha insurrection? Itachi pointedly asked. Sasuke shot his older brother an unamused glare. What? You think you could have stopped that by yourself? I reviewed what happened in my mind quite a lot of times, and came up with at least 5 possible courses of action I could have taken in order to minimize the bloodshed of that night to a fraction of what it was, Itachi argued. Then again, I don't blame myself for what happened there. I was even younger than you are now, so I think I did the best I could have done back then. I do think you, both of us, did the best we could. You said it yourself, Madara was too strong, so no point in moping about it, Sasuke said. Itachi let out a sigh. Guess I'm not that used to fight against enemies so superior to me either. You always told me not to let my power make me confident, and that there will always be somebody much stronger than you are, Sasuke reminded him. Itachi chuckled sadly. Guess I'm not that good at applying my own advice either, am I? Probably because you were never in a situation when you needed to, Sasuke told him. Itachi merely acknowledged Sasuke's point with a nod. Silence then befell between the two brothers, who stayed like that for several hours. Sometime later, sunrise dawn came a few hours later, when the sun rose and bathed the entire continent in light, driving the night coat of shadows away. Of course, that isn't something the people of the second division would know, given that most of them were hidden underground. Despite the lack of natural sunlight, a girl that had been asleep for hours woke up shortly after the sun started to rise. Hanabi Hyuga stirred in her sleep, as her consciousness slowly returned. She opened her eyes, blinking a few times to adjust to the light of the instance, which was rather dim. Slowly, she sat up and turned around. Hey, look, she's awake. Hanabi was quickly surrounded by her 2 teammates, who looked at her with worried eyes. Oh boy, thank goodness you woke up. After the beating that Madara asshole gave you, we feared for the worst. Kaida said, before her mood lightened up, and gave her twin brother a hard slap on the back. Thank goodness my little bro is a superb medic. What happened? Where are we? She asked, looking around. Did Madara win? We're in an underground shelter made via Earth release, Hagane began to explain. As for what happened, the white-haired Senju told Hagane how Sasuke and Itachi took over from Hanabi, but even the Uchiha duo failed to make any significant damage to the Madara, and how Madara decided to stop fooling around and showcase his true power in the form of not 1 nor 2, but 6 Chibaku Tensei. When Hagane was going to tell her about the second round of meteors in Gai's sacrifice, Kaida tugged her brother's sleeve, and nodded to a pair of IWA ninjas that were walking by. Yes, I heard Sachikage-sama herself say it. The hideout of the Jinchuriki has been attacked by Akatsuki, one of the IWA ninja, a man said. Though I heard the Jinchuriki escaped, at the very least. Let's hope the other divisions move out and secure them, his companion, Akunoichi, replied. After all the ninjas that died to protect those 3, especially today, They better don't let Akatsuki get their hands on them and make all of this in vain. They continued talking, but the trio didn't listen. They already had all the information they considered relevant. You heard that? Hagane asked. Yes. Naruto Nizan is in danger. Kaida said, her voice cracking a little. We need to go out and help him. Kaida tried to stand up and run outside, but Hagane grabbed her by the arm. Kaida, no. You don't know where Naruto Nizan and the other two are, Hagane said. And even if you were, neither of us are in condition to go out and fight. Hanabi wanted to say something, until an idea dawned upon her. She sat down in the lotus position, and focused her chakra. The twins took notice of this. Hanabi? What are you doing? Hagane asked. I don't think Sage Mode is going to help here, Kaida added. I'm not gathering nature energy. We may not be able to help, but I'm going to ask somebody who can, Hanabi said. Now shut up, I need to focus. Konoha, Hyuga Estate. Despite being an early riser, Hinata was still asleep. She had been sleeping for quite a lot of time since her return to Konoha. The fight against Tonari had left her drained, more than what she wanted to admit, so her body was soaking on all the rest it could gather. Hinata. Her nights were dreamless, given how deep her slumber was. This one, however, was going to be an exception. Soon, Hinata found herself inside a weird but familiar place, the ancient temple of purple stone where she first met Hamira Atsutsuki. And then there was that voice calling her name time after time, each time more desperate. Hinata. Hinata groaned as she tried to get on her feet, only to realize that she was already standing. She blinked a couple times, before realizing that there was somebody in front of her. Somebody she knew very well. Hanabi? Finally, the younger sister said, throwing her hands into the air. What took you so long? Sorry, Hanabi-chan, I was asleep. My last fight left me a little exhausted, but I'm almost back to my full strength, Hinata explained. She titled her head, and looked at her little sister with worried eyes. You seem agitated, it's something wrong? Something wrong? Heh, you have no idea. Hanabi then explained Hinata Madara's mysterious appearance, how he wrecked the second division, and how Guy had to sacrifice himself in order to stop him. Guy-sensei is dead. No, she cried, covering her mouth with her hands. While she herself didn't have much relation with the green-clad Jonin save from that time she trained under him to increase her endurance and strength, that was her cousin's Jonin-sensei. Niji Nizan and his teammates must be devastated. And that's not all, Hanabi continued. I heard that they attacked Kumo's secret island. Naruto and the others managed to escape, but they're still out there. I hope you're well rested, because your boyfriend needs you. Like, right now. Hinata nodded. Yes. Thanks for telling me this, Hanabi-chan. In the meantime, stay safe. I sense that you aren't at your best either. Don't worry about me, sis. But thanks. Now go. Hinata opened her eyes, and found herself in her room at the Hyuga estate. There wasn't much time to act. She quickly went to the kitchen and prepared herself a breakfast that would keep her going for a long time, which she ate as fast as she could. Then, she raced back to her room, tossed her nightgown, and put on a thigh-length battle kimono, purple in color with dark blue trimming and tied with a white obi. Lastly, she put on a pair of blue knee-length boots, before grabbing her ninja tool pouch. Once she was ready, she rushed out of her room, and once she was outside, she took off into the sky, flying upwards until she reached 500 meters in altitude. Once she was high enough, she directed chakra to her eyes in order to increase the vision range of the Tensigen. Come on, Naruto-kun, where are you? Hinata asked, as her eyes scanned kilometers and kilometers of land in front of her. She was starting to grow desperate, until she found a very powerful chakra signature, one that radiated with the strength of the sun. Accompanying him were other two signatures of similar strength, one she was familiar with, the other unknown. Her lips curved into a smile. There you are. Wasting no more time, Hinata shot forward. Even at her fast speed, she'd take many hours to reach her boyfriend. She prayed that nothing would happen before she could arrive to his side. Somewhere in the forests of the north of the land of fire, Obito looked at the mass of green that extended before him. Among all that green, his praise awaited. You have evaded me for a long time, Naruto. This will be the last time I'll have to fight you. You and your fellow Jinchuriki will fulfill your roles as the sacrifices that will allow a better world to exist, Obito said, as he leaped forward. Let's go. Behind him, the reanimations of 6 former Jinchuriki followed the Akatsuki, the tools Obito would use to catch his elusive foes.